Shit is really popping off now, so buckle up. So I have a way bigger video for you guys today. Obviously, as I'm sure you can see by how long this video is, it is a way deeper weekly horoscope than I've probably ever done in my life. But that is because I did a collab video with my friend Astrology with Will, and we talked about everything pretty much going on this week, but also this last couple weeks of July, because it's all so big and it all happens like right back to back. And so there's just so much coming, and we're astro nerds. Like, I am an astro nerd at heart. I can nerd the hell out. Okay, so if you are an astro nerd, you're going to appreciate this video. If you're not, don't worry. We did do horoscopes at the end, so if you want to jump to your horoscope, that's fine too. But if you can try to astro nerd out with us, I definitely recommend you do. There's all kinds of gold in the first half of this video. Well, first majority of this video, I should probably say. Maybe just turn it on like while you clean your house or while you're taking a long drive, play it over a few consecutive, driving sessions. Like, I don't know. Just turn it on, listen to it. I think that you'll really appreciate it, and let me know how you feel about it down below. And I will be going even deeper into a lot of these subjects as well, like the nodal shift into Leo and Aquarius, and then also the Aquarius full moon happening next week, which is a big mother effing deal. Okay, so get ready for that. And anyways, without further ado, because this video is long enough, let's get into this collab video with Astrology with Will. Okay, so basically I'm with Astrology with Will. We did a collab video back in October. Both, like to astro nerd out. So today we're going to be talking about all the crazy shit that's going on. There's just so many crazy things going on back to back that we wanted to talk about because like we're both really excited about it. This is just a crazy astrological time. There's a lot of things happening that like haven't all happened together before in the same way, which is very rare, in astrology.
Yeah.
And so it's just a very crazy, rare time. And I think everybody can feel it to some extent, where it's almost like the background noise or like the background energy and the air has shifted. And we're all kind of trying to figure out what the new rules are of this era, of this like, weird reality that we've just got like transported into are. It almost feels like the last several years have been like a dream that we're like waking up from all of a sudden. And now it's like, okay, where do we go from here? Who are we now? Where, like, what's going on? And so this is just such an interesting time. And I feel like so many people I've seen this year are in that wake up stage where they're like, okay, wait, do I still believe what I've been believing? Do I still want to do what I've been doing? I've seen so many like people, I guess, get a bit humbled, so to say, into this more authentic, raw, real version of themselves since this year has started. And it's been very interesting. I've also had some, back and forth with like my own ego this year and kind of putting it in its place and having to face like, challenging situations and stop caring about how I'm perceived or whatever so much. And so anyway, so that's what we're going to be going over. There's just so much happening this week.
Doing that, I will go ahead and just pop in because legitimately I'm super excited about the different things. Like, as you mentioned, like there is definitely a shift going on right now. And like we are going from like a time where everything is like in water and earth, where everything's like really grounded, really emotional. And then now we're sitting like seriously switching into fire and air. And like we've got air blowing on the fire to where like we're just gonna see so much shifting and changing. And there's so much that's happening that's like really focusing a lot of energy in a bunch of different places. And like you said, like a lot of people are probably feeling this because, well, okay, because there is like there's so much happening in different areas of the zodiac to where like people with strong Aquarian placements are going to feel it. People with strong placements in Aries, Gemini, Leo, and then like anything that's opposing any of that. So like the chances of somebody feeling this are a lot higher now because the energy is just all over the place and it's playing in such dynamic ways that like there's that. And then on top of that, the rareness of these configurations, like you were saying, like this is a momentous time and I'm loving it.
Yeah, it's it's crazy. It just there's so much like optimism in the air, but like I said earlier, I feel like there's this sense of eeriness as
Gloom.
well, really coming from that, I think, Pluto opposition to Jupiter. It's really about,
Yeah.
I think, like at the root level of it, I think it's really about like facing the unknown. And we can go ahead and start with Pluto and Jupiter because that's perfecting literally the day that we're filming this on Monday, the 20th. And so, and I know I've done like a ton of videos on this opposition, but they were mainly like either right before it started or right in the beginning. So I really haven't talked about it like since it's been heating up and now we're at the peak of it. So, but this opposition started forming in the beginning of July. No, June 30th. Yeah,
Yeah, at
basically
the
beginning of
end of June,
July.
yeah.
Yeah, so this opposition started then on this day of July 20th. They are basically in an perfect opposition at this point. Ignore the actual degrees on here. At the time that we're filming this, Jupiter is technically at 4. This is a chart from the future. And so, but yeah, so this has been really, really interesting. And I feel like there's a lot going on here with this opposition that Jupiter, I mean, both of these planets are kind of, outer planets to some degree. Like Pluto definitely is. Jupiter's a bit more outer
Out there.
than, yeah, like Pluto's that more outer than Jupiter, but Jupiter is also kind of out there. So this isn't something that necessarily is going to be like a one day scenario or something big just happens and all of a sudden that's it. This is something that I think we are again, that's kind of going on in the background that we are playing out. And I've noticed this huge theme with these two of light and dark and how they both play into each other and how to also alchemize darkness to turn it into light. And I feel like I've had a lot of dreams about this, but the crazy thing is, I've had really powerful dreams lately about this Jupiter Pluto opposition, and I can't fucking remember any of them, and it drives me nuts, which is also very Pluto. Like, we're gonna just hide this from you, like you're doing all this crazy alchemy in your sleep and have no idea what it is.
I
Um,
love what you're saying though, because
yeah.
like when you look at like even both sides of it, when we're looking at just the signs themselves, and then when we look at the planets involved, like it's totally exactly what you're saying. Like
Yeah.
Like when you look at Aquarius, that is dark. Like we are in the heart of freaking winter. We look at Leo, it's the heart of summer, right? And then
Mhm.
when we look at Jupiter, Jupiter's hope and all that beauty and like just great things, expansion. And then Pluto's, yeah, but let's take it down, all right? So
Yeah.
like I love it because you just have it like playing out. It's doubled up in a sense, and that with Pluto being in Aquarius and Jupiter being in Leo, whereas like Pluto's taking things really, really deep and on like a collective level and just everything that could possibly go wrong. I think that one of the great things that we can see with Pluto is that it highlights fears. It highlights things that like can be because you will typically see like the gamut expressed here where it'll get extremely bad, extremely good. You'll see extremes, right? Just
Yeah.
from the Plutonian side of things, right? And then Jupiter is still on the other side, trying to give us some hope, and maybe like
Yeah.
because it's in Leo, emphasizing the life that could be, as opposed to the darkness of winter that Pluto is dredging up and making us see.
Yeah, totally. I think like I feel like I've had like a lot of again, like dream of like unconscious revelations about this that I can't exactly reach, but I do feel like it is I almost feel like it because again, I actually did think a lot more would happen, and this is very close. It's not conjunct completely my ascendant, but it's very close. My ascendant's at 10, and so this is happening at 4, so it's only about 6 degrees off my ascendant. But I feel like it's almost a bit more of a embracing the unknown kind of thing for me, like is how I've seen it playing out. And then like again with others, I feel like it's almost a bit, and it does trine and sextile Neptune and not necessarily Saturn completely yet, but they're bigger, they're outer planets, so I kind of still consider it with Saturn. But I feel like it almost kind of mimics the Saturn Neptune conjunction, but makes it a bit more blown out of proportion, or not really out of proportion, but makes it bigger, makes it more known. I feel like Saturn and Neptune coming into Aries earlier this year was kind of like, what do I like the walls or the perceived walls of our reality and our beliefs are kind of getting completely deconstructed with Saturn and Neptune. There's a lot of like what's even real anymore, what I believe seems to be real, but is it? There's like just a lot of disillusionment that has happened since the last few years and just everything that we've basically gone through since 2020. And then now we're at this halfway point from 2020 with the Jupiter Pluto opposition. And that opposition is like, so Neptune can be belief, Saturn can be restriction and construction and disillusionment, sobriety. Now, in this situation with Jupiter and Pluto opposite each other, Jupiter can be belief and faith and hope and optimism, and Pluto is deconstruction and endings and death and alchemy and what's really interesting is that Pluto rules can rule wealth, but and here's the interesting part about that. I used to wonder about that. Like, why does Pluto rule over wealth? Like, what in it makes that, like, how does that exactly happen? And I think it's because it teaches us the wealth that can be found in the dark, when you face the underworld. And I think in this instance, because of the opposition, it's kind of like the underworld within and the reason, okay, so hold on, let me explain where I'm getting this from. So like you said, the sun rules Leo. Leo is like the solar sign. Saturn rules Aquarius, and this is the sun is in detriment in Aquarius. And so when the sun moves in Aquarius, it's basically, right around its lowest point before it starts regaining in light. Metaphorically speaking, it's like can't be its brightest there. It's no longer just about the individual or the solar power of the self, because light is not as reachable during that time. And so one has no other choice but to either find who they are from others or go completely within to the depths of who they are and find something original still within themselves. And so I think that this is saying in a weird way that there is a wealth within, because I think that I personally have had experiences where Pluto and Aquarius so far has had some interesting lessons for me about almost showing me where I am in my own way, or where I am my own problem. And I think it's that opposition to Leo that does that. And so I think that there's an interesting dynamic with Pluto where it's like, you find wealth when you stop giving your power to certain things, because Leo is realizing, I have power, I have energy. And then Aquarius is like, what I give my energy to manifest, what I put my focus on manifest. And then there's this interesting thing that happens where it's like, okay, well, Pluto rules what's in the darkness, Pluto rules what's in the underworld. And a lot of the times the human condition, the biggest issue of all, the biggest shadow of humanity at all, from what I've seen, is a very deep sense of unworthiness, or a deep sense of shame in some way. And so when one faces that unworthiness or that shame, one then receives its power that it was giving to its unworthiness this whole time, because one always has the power. And so I think Pluto in Aquarius, on a different level, or on a more spiritual level, rules wealth, because the wealth is always in the darkness that you hide from, the fears that you don't want to face, the rejection that you think is going to happen if you do what you actually want to do, the limitations that you put on yourself, the fears that you have. There's extreme wealth. I mean, it's why people risk their lives to have certain experiences, like go jump out of an airplane and freaking, go parachuting, or like go, jump off a bridge and go bungee jumping, or like, whatever. There is power in facing the darker things in life that we often avoid or don't want to face. And some people know that. And that's why if life was just perfect and comfortable all the time, it would be boring as fuck. And that's why we're here on Earth, to like face that other side of the coin, to have that darkness that, sometimes we crave on our own. It's like, ooh, I want to face this fear. I want to get out there and ride that roller coaster, even though I could die, like there's something thrilling about it, but there's also something that makes us feel alive. And I feel like Pluto opposite Jupiter and Leo is like, what makes you feel alive? And it's almost like the start of something igniting in us, or something getting reignited within us, that causes us to need to reinvent ourselves, and give in to the unknown a bit, and realize that we don't know everything, but the answers are always within. So
Yeah, I like that. And I like a lot of what you were saying, because it points to pretty much the nature of Pluto. Because if you look at Pluto, you are legitimately looking at the phoenix, right? Not just the pretty side of the phoenix where it's this beautiful, majestic bird. No, we're talking about being burnt down to the ground, staying as ashes, and then rising from the ashes. It's like the whole thing. So you have to be able to go through that whole process of being burnt down, going into the underworld, and then rising up and being able to be a lot better because at that point you found your power, which you probably wouldn't have found had you not gone through all that.
Right.
And another thing that you talk about is like the wealth aspect of Pluto. And typically, like if you see the most wealthy people out there, there's some type of Pluto like conjunction to Venus, Pluto conjunct like Pluto is playing some type of part when you've got like billionaires, not just millionaires or anything like that. The big players have Pluto somewhat prominently connected to probably Venus more than likely. But yeah, there's something there. And I think that again, it also can go to another side of things where like there's something that happens when it comes to wealth and the way that wealth is distributed, and some of it has to deal with that power and control that is again naturally of Pluto. And I think that one of the interesting things that we're going to see play out over the next 20 years as Pluto's going through Aquarius is the burning down and the reconstruction and the rise of societies, of people, of groups. And we'll see exactly how that plays out because there are definitely interesting ways that can go. If we look back to 2020, that was a different world, and that was some very heavy Pluto activations and Aquarius like just playing really really strongly into everything that we saw. However, we're having an opposition right now with Jupiter in Leo, really showing us another side of things to where typically like we could definitely veer really really negative on this because that's some really really intense energy. However, I do think that Pluto's like Jupiter, while he's giving a chance to like really gain some perspective from the Leo side of things, might help us understand a bunch of different things because Jupiter really does help expand ourselves, whether it's through expansion through travel, whether it's expansion through trying different things from different cultures, or going within on like from the Sagittarius side or the Pisces side where it's going inwards, and we're really just like exploring the depths of our being, right? I think that that really also pairs really well with like the Pluto and Aquarius stuff. Even though it doesn't necessarily see each other typically, we have Jupiter now opposing Pluto and really giving us a chance to come to terms with a lot of things that we saw, especially because, as you mentioned, we're having Pluto now opposing Jupiter, where a lot of the stuff that we're seeing playing out right now are like things that became really apparent during the time that Jupiter and Pluto were together. Now that
Mhm.
we've got like the full moon section of this, we're getting to see, all right, what is it that we think? And I think that, as you also mentioned, that Saturn Neptune side of things, there's so much that's playing into it. And we have to remember that nothing happens in a vacuum. When we're talking about astrology, everything's building into something else. And that huge, momentous Saturn Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries is something that rocks everybody. It rocks everything. If you look at people with prominent Saturn Neptune placements, like a JE and some other people, like you've got a lot of, like you can see how there's a lot that's happening that the astrology is playing out. So for people that are really fearful and whatnot, I want you to know, don't necessarily build into that fear because during this time, especially because of the configurations that are playing out, a lot of the energy is really flowing and it's flowing really well. And how you interact with that energy is going to play into how it plays out in your life to an extent because it's flowing energy and energy flows where your attention goes. And if your attention is going to the negative stuff, there's a good chance that you're going to be building into a lot of negative things. And there's a lot that's playing out with power dynamics between the individual versus the collective, the individual versus technology in some senses. There's a lot that's happening. We're seeing different battles play out in the world, but also within ourselves. Typically, we're seeing something else play out. Again, like Tani, like I've got my ascendant at 4 degrees of Jupiter, so this is definitely playing right out there. And like the rest of my chart's just kind of like playing out to where like this is just lighting up my whole life. Um, and some people out there maybe expect like experience the same things. And I want you to know, like, think of what you can do to gain what you can from this experience. At the very least, we have Jupiter helping us gain some hope, gain some perspective, maybe have the ability or the extra energy to do the deep dive that Pluto requires, because what Pluto also uncovers for us is what is hidden. And a lot of times what we're not dealing with and what is hidden is what's controlling us until we actually have the the strength and the valiant like the the courage that Leo gives us to actually face the darkness, as she was saying. Like it works out perfectly to where like if you are able to get this like extra voltage and extra like bump of energy to where you're like, all right, I'm gonna do this, because either way it goes, like whatever's happening is happening. If you face it, you have the chance to then take control of it and gain the power over whatever maybe had control over you this whole time that you weren't necessarily ready to deal with. We'll deal with this as people on our own, but also as a collective. We're seeing the world wake up to a lot of different things, as Tani mentioned, where we're starting to notice different things that we didn't notice before, different like different aspects of our day-to-day lives that have been controlled we're starting to be like, wait, this isn't what we've been told. This is this is different. And when we look at the full configuration, because we've got the Jupiter Pluto opposition, but then we also have other planets that are playing into it. That Saturn Neptune conjunction, like they continued on, and then Neptune ended up at this point where now he's making different connections to Pluto and Jupiter, but then they're also making connections to Uranus and Gemini. And one thing that I like to tell people is that you really want to make sure that you are aware of the fact that your energy is important, your time is important, where it is that your focus is important. You are important. And if you forget that and you let different things like social media and whatnot take over your time, that's one way that you will be disempowered during this time that can be really, really empowering for us individuals, but also as a collective, especially us within as individuals within the collective. I think that we can see some really big gains during this time because everything's going to be rebalanced. We're going to talk about the node switching signs too, to where like we're just going to see some major shifts. Like as Tanya mentioned, like this isn't just like a month with just like some things happening. We're having like all the things happening at once, and they're setting us up for a lot more that's going to be happening in the future.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I feel like it's so, this is going to be such a Pluto in Aquarius thing to say. But it's so true. I know like both me and you keep like telling people like, hey, if you are going through it right now, or you are really unclear, or like it feels like you are like having a whole like crisis of faith or belief or like whatever, identity, like whatever. If you're unsure about stuff you thought you were sure about up until this point, the very Pluto and Aquarius thing for me to tell you is that you're not special in your suffering right now because everybody is, like, and so, Aquarius is that kind of like sign of like, oh, we're all connected. You're just like everybody else, or you're human. It reminds Leo this, like, God part of us is God self, this, light of consciousness, of awareness, of everything revolves around it because it's ruled by the sun. Aquarius is like, okay, well, that's cute, but like you're just like everybody else. It's I always describe it as like, you go to a classroom and you're in school and you like draw the most badass picture, but it wasn't the rules of what everybody was supposed to draw. So you go outside the rules, but you know that your picture is the most badass picture and you know it's better than everyone else's because you've seen everyone else's. And then you go to turn it in and you're basically disciplined for not following the rules and no one thinks that it was that great and no one gives you praise and you realize I'm not that special. It's kind of the balance. And as having like a Leo rising with an Aquarius moon myself, it's like my inner dialogue all the time. It's like, I'll do something I think is like really great or I think is like really funny and expressive in the moment, and then I'm like editing the video where I did it and I'm like, oh gosh, like could you be more full of yourself, like, and so it's such the and this is so important beyond just the Jupiter and Pluto opposition because like you said, Will, like the nodes are going to be moving in here. And what I think is really interesting about that I think like it just really hit me as something that could mean something more than just what it is that the South Node will meet Jupiter before the North Node meets Pluto. So Jupiter flies through Leo pretty quickly. And so when the nodes, let me kind of get all this other stuff off the screen so I can kind of show people what I mean here. But basically, when the nodes, move into Leo and Aquarius, they're going to be here at the end of the signs because they move backwards. So, but Jupiter is going to fly through Leo and meet that South Node, I'm pretty sure, by like September, I want to say. Or no, well, technically November, but it should be getting pretty close by like end of September into October timeframe. We'll probably definitely be feeling it by then at the very least. But Jupiter is going to fly through, meet the South Node, and then the North Node will start coming closer to Pluto way next year, into next year. And so I think that's very interesting. And it goes with kind of what you were saying, Will, about like the perspective shift and the inner perspective. And so it's almost like this, shedding that's going to happen with, as the South Node usually does. But I think a bit differently on the South Node because I've had a lot of like South Node, because a lot of my planets in my chart are from Leo to Aquarius in my chart. So like the whole bottom half of my chart is where all my stuff is at. And so I've had a lot of South Node interactions over the last several years, since 2020. And what I really realized is that it's not really just a decreasing. Sometimes it can play out like that, but it's not just like a decreasing or slipping away or like, it all falls apart. It's actually a lot of healing. It's like a tremendous amount of healing. Like I remember when the South Node was moving across my sun, that was one of the most healing times of my life. I felt more like myself than I had ever felt. And so I think it can also reconnect you with something that's underneath a lot of other shit that isn't true. And so, and again, I'm optimistic. I'm a Leo rising and it's about to enter my first house. So I may be a bit biased here, but I've also realized that as like I have Venus and Jupiter conjunct in Virgo, worst place to have them. And I've also realized that as the South Node has come across my Jupiter and Venus, like there's been just this, like especially last year when it was basically coming right up on it and conjunct it was like right around September last year. There's just this crack open that happened that it was kind of an emptying out in a lot of ways, but in a very healing way. It was like an unraveling of everything, all the ideals and stuff that I had had about love and feminine energy and like all of these other things, my heart, like the heart space, like everything that was blocking that completely got cleared out. And it was like a really beautiful experience. I was having like a whole spiritual awakening for like 2 months off of that. And so I think that the South Node can be extremely healing. And I think it can really reconnect us with something deeper. So I think when it moves into Leo and Jupiter meets it, I think that's an interesting combination because they're very different. Jupiter can make things bigger, can go bigger, can, it's a huge planet. And that's where it gets its kind of, stereotype of expansion and really like finding one's virtues, beliefs, morals, your perspective on life, which honestly, life is way more boring without beliefs or without a story we tell ourselves about it. And sometimes those stories can become limiting or can become a ceiling or those beliefs can become, no longer for us. And so I think that the South Node meeting Jupiter and Leo will show us where we have certain ceilings, where we have certain limiting beliefs that that we've created, Leo, and it will point us back to our own creation, our own creator, that we are the creator here, that we are the ones that can create these beliefs or recreate them. And so I think that that'll be very interesting. And I know I'm getting like way ahead talking about the nodes already, but
Yeah.
I wanted to say that before I forgot about Jupiter and the South Node meeting before Pluto and the North Node meeting. But I mean,
And
it doesn't
remind me
have to
later
be
too
over.
to bring up that whole section about like Jupiter because like not Jupiter but the South Node being some type of release, but also can be connected to past gifts and past lives possibly for people that believe in those
Yes.
things. So remind me of that because it can be part of the reason why things happen. Where like we're releasing things that are part of this current incarnation, letting things go that are not necessarily part of our bigger picture, and then being brought back to what actually is in the grander scale of things.
Yeah, I'll definitely remind you of that. I've had that experience too. When I actually had that experience when the North Node, when I was going through my reverse nodal return, more detail.
Yeah, like
To
the
that.
Pluto Jupiter thing, I just think that it's very interesting to think about the fact that we have all of the outer planets and such a harmonizing and like great configuration to each other. Where like typically when we have the outer planets doing anything, we're not going to notice it too much unless one of the inner planets brings it out, right? Something has to happen to activate that energy and help us understand what's going on. The same thing is can be said about a lot of the configurations that are being made because we've got Pluto making a sextile to Neptune. We have Neptune making a sextile to Uranus, Uranus making a sextile to Jupiter. Like we have these, and at the same time, Pluto's making a trine to Uranus, and Neptune is making a trine to Jupiter. Like there's so much flowing energy that a lot of times the flowing things we don't necessarily notice as much as maybe the harder things. So when Jupiter comes in and creates another point there, not only does it make it to where we have the different flowing points between all the outer planets, we have an inner planet that is taking it within the realm of Saturn because like Saturn has been known as the planet that kind of constructs and holds our reality. He holds our time. So since Saturn has been in Aries and had that conjunction with Neptune, our conception of what is reality, what is time, and what is everything has just completely fallen apart. And during this time, it's like the outer planets are all working together to bring forth something new as far as what reality will be, what reality can be, what time will be, how everything, like how our lives will be oriented from this point on, right? It's going to be like we had like a ground zero point and now everything's being reconstructed. And part of like the person who's known the most for this configuration is a French astrologer named with the last name Barbeau, right? And he was typically not a very optimistic person, but when he was talking about this configuration itself, he was a lot more optimistic than usual. And a lot of people are like, yeah, but if you look at the world right now, no, not really, because like the world is a mess. But I'm kind of like seeing things on that possible side as well. Like I've got a lot of Virgo energy. I'm very well aware of like a million different ways that things can go wrong, and I'm very well of like the different pieces that are moving. I can't avoid it, right? However, part of me also and is connected to the fact that while there is darkness, there is also light. So while there has been like a very shadowy side of things going on, the light has been there as well. And during this time, especially if we have people like astrology does not tell you how things are going to play out in your life. It tells you about the different energies that are going to be present at different times. How you engage with that energy is going to also affect how things play out. And how we decide to engage this energy will also play into the grand scheme of things. It's not like it was before where only a certain select few had knowledge of certain occult practices. You have more people practicing occult things to where now you've got people that are aware of the other side of things. They're aware of different energies. And therefore, the ability to work with this on a whole different level can be different. It doesn't have to be run by whoever it is that has been running things before. Like we have a different way of engaging with these energies, and we have to just remember that we are playing a part. This whole like Jupiter and the sun and Leo thing is reminding us of that God part of ourselves, as she mentioned. Like we are creator, we are creating different things in our lives, and those different things that we're creating are feeding into every other aspect. And it is quite literally feeding into every other aspect right now because of the opposition and the different trines and sextiles being made. There's a lot of energy that's flowing, and be mindful of where that energy is going. Be mindful of where it is that you're putting things because it's going to play into the grand scheme of things for a lot longer. And yes, we might just be like our own individual pieces in the collective, but as more of us become aware and are more mindful of the way that we're going about things, we will then be part of the collective side of things, which is again part of that Aquarius side. There's a lot of it that's like literally, if you think of whatever it is that's going on in your life right now, it can possibly be connected to one of these pieces of the puzzle that are all playing into each other and can all play into each other for something positive if you are willing to do the work and actually look at things. You're willing to go deep with the Pluto and Aquarius. If you're willing to allow this new self, this new version of yourself to be born from something that could be connected to something spiritual, could be connected to something idealistic with Neptune and Aries, really affecting ourselves, our version of what we think of ourselves and how we impose our will out in the world. And then also Uranus and Gemini changing the way that we think of things, changing the way that we speak of things. Maybe we need to speak more positivity into the world. Maybe we need to think of something that we want. Like we know that here in the US, the Uranus and Gemini has shown us a lot of like really interesting things. But at the same time, if you look at what Uranus is, that's that liberation, freedom, and it starts to enter into the section that talks about what we're talking about, what we're thinking about, you can see where we naturally get to that point where we push for more of that because it becomes part of our collective conscious and part of what we're actually talking about. And then Jupiter connecting us to a different perspective of who we are at the same time. If you just put it all into each other, you can really get a lot from this energy. And I can tell you 100% that from what has been exposed from that Saturn Neptune conjunction and how different conspiracy theories are actually conspiracy facts, like there's a lot more playing into this. And don't let your energy necessarily be taken from you. Reclaim it. Know that you are that person and make your life what you want it to be, at least from this perspective of things, that from what I see it.
Yeah, I'm gonna add to that, and then we can move on from Jupiter, Pluto if you want. But I think I think that some of the message of all of this could also be learning how to liberate and control your own mind. With Uranus and Gemini trining Pluto and Aquarius, but also, you know, the Jupiter and Leo, Neptune and Saturn and Aries. I think it's like coming back to your own sense of self, but also learning how to control your own mind, how to control your own reality. You know, obviously, historically speaking, when Uranus enters Gemini, yes, it has lined up with like a lot of conflicts with the US, but also I think the biggest ongoing theme of those conflicts that really has to do with Gemini is speech, communication. Every single time there was this huge liberation or huge new invention or huge new way of communicating, whether it was through newspapers or sending messages back and forth or whatever, like there was always this massive duality or this polarity that started forming as well with people and different ideals, different ways of seeing things. And so I think like with Uranus and Gemini trining Pluto and Aquarius, there's this liberation of old ways of seeing things that have potentially controlled us or held us back until this point. And something I've been talking a lot about with the Jupiter Pluto opposition between Leo and Aquarius as well is that this is a time where a lot of people are going to be asked to rise. And I think that it's so important that we get on board with who we really are deep down, because right now it's so much about our own sense of integrity, our own heart, and our own individuality, but not just for ourselves, but how that can be used for a greater good. I kept using like the analogy of like Lord of the Rings in my videos before, like, you know, obviously Frodo doesn't want to be carrying this damn ring, you know, to the fires of this creepy eye in the middle of like this really dark, you know, Pluto looking freaking space, you know.
Hellmouth.
Right,
Yeah.
like I couldn't remember the name. But obviously he doesn't want to be doing this, you know, but he's doing it because of his own innocence, son Leo, right? Like his own innocence and his ability to be able to at least withstand more than other people the ring, you know, the corruption of the ring. And so this could be our own stand against corruption in a lot of ways, but not like, obviously, yeah, it could come to people protesting out in the streets and whatnot. But I also think it's going to be more on an individual level with Saturn and Neptune and Aries, with Jupiter and Leo. I think it's going to be through the hearts and through the minds of ourselves and learning how to better control our minds. Also, on the flip side of that, I think there's going to be a lot to be said about either accepting technology into our lives, you know, even more so because we're dealing with air signs here, and this is going to get really, really techy, you know, really, really, especially with Uranus now in Gemini. Like it's about to get even more techy. You know, technology is obviously going to completely pop off, but I think it's either about learning to live in that world where you accept it, or learning to control your mind and live in that world, or living outside of that world and learning to not, you know, have to rely on it at all. And again, that could be the split that we see happen with the Uranus and Gemini of like the different polarity of
Gemini.
beliefs, yeah, that Uranus and Gemini usually causes historically. Now I'm not saying one's good or bad, but I did hear someone say this recently about how, you know, they, when during their awakening they decided to like get away and like move across, you know, across the world and basically go live in, you know, no man's land and jungle somewhere and like have this like complete spiritual life so they could nurture their awakening. But then eventually it was like, damn, like they were like, I didn't come here to just like escape the matrix and escape, like, you know, everything going on in this world. And so they came back, and they said they entered back into the matrix intentionally on purpose because they felt like that's where the work needed to be done the most. And I thought that was a really interesting thing, especially with everything we have going on astrologically right now. It's one thing to awaken to what's going on, and I know that process can be very painful and very shattering for a person where you feel like, I just want to get away from all this, I don't want to deal with any of this. But I love this, you know, talk that Ram Dass has, where he talks about how, you know, he worked on his spirituality and went over to, I think, India or wherever and learned from a guru. And, you know, basically it was this huge spiritual person. And then eventually he came back because he had a meditation and met one of his guides in a meditation. And his guide was like, you came here to be human, man. Like, you got to live the human game. And I feel like that's so much of what this could potentially be for a lot of people coming up. Like, learning how to be in control of your mind, be awakened in a world that, yes, is gonna have corruption. And honestly, I don't think we're ever gonna get rid of corruption completely. It's the other side of being human. Again, Aquarius, humanity, like, it's not perfect. And you know, Saturn rules Aquarius, so Aquarius is also like what is on the what's on the fringes of humanity, like who's the outsiders here. That's why in 2020 and 2021 we had all that stuff moving through Capricorn and then Aquarius. It got really into groups, but also who are the outcasts, who are not following all these rules, and let's outcast them and let's ruin their lives and kick them out of their jobs and whatever, make it harder for them to live their everyday lives. And so Aquarius rules. And I remember I even made like a reel back then, and I was like, this is gonna be the year the year that's very surrounded around the rebels, the freaks, the outcasts, the outsiders. And Aquarius does have a tendency to do that because it can be the pressure to conform. Like it can just a ton of pressure to conform, because how does it do that? Well, Pluto, especially Pluto in Aquarius here, and also Saturn being its natural ruler, it does it through fear. If we don't follow the rules, Saturn, ruler of Aquarius, then we might die, or we might even be exiled from the group, not belong, which is why Aquarius can deal with belonging. And Pluto in Aquarius rules fear and control, and I always think it's very interesting how both of those go really together, because when you want to control people, what better way to do that than to have them be in fear?
Getting scared.
Yeah. They're so much easier to control that way, because then it's like, oh, okay, well, then you'll do what I want you to do, because again, your fear controls you, and it can be used against you to control you by other people. And so this is why we have to, I think, on like a more individual level, just outside of talking about like the world and the collective in general, which is hard to do, and Aquarius is involved anyway, but it's very much about you learning to face whatever fears or darkness you have going on that has control over you in your life, so that you can move forward in life. And like you said,
Yeah.
courage and kind of I really kind of see Saturn in Aries as this like drill sergeant, like do hard shit and like it, kind of thing. Like learn how to challenge yourself, like go, keep going, go to the gym, go do this, go do that, go like run, like you're,
Figure it out. You're
yeah,
gonna
like
do it.
stop being like a weak little bitch, like I totally feel like that's that, because as soon as it entered Aries, I feel like I started going to the gym for the first time. I started talking to myself like that. I was like, this is not me. Where is this coming from? Like I just felt like my masculine energy just really started coming out. Like, and anyway, I've been kind of loving it though. I'm not gonna lie. There's a part of me that loves it. There's a part of me that's like, especially since Cancer season started, I'm like, all right, we need to chill a little bit. Like I was like getting really into it there, but anyway.
Good thing too, because like now we've got Jupiter is going to be making his little connections with all the planets, and then the sun is actually going to go ahead and pop into Leo and join Jupiter and
Mhm.
really start helping us connect all these different dots that Tawny was talking about, of connecting who you are and like what you are, and getting to a point where you can actually like connect with these energies, because the sun is really the core of our being, right? It's the center of the solar system, it's the core of our being. And as it connects back into Leo, its own sign, it's really like bringing us back, because the sun has gone through a whole lot. We've gone through a whole lot as a people. And as we're starting to connect these dots now, the sun's going to come over and really help us face things, because the sun's going to connect with Jupiter and really give us a really good check on our perspective and everything. But before that, he's going to go ahead and oppose Pluto as well. And like we're going to have this point where the sun is opposing Pluto, really shining a light on that darkness and giving us a chance to see whatever it is that's going on there. And then right afterwards is still getting that support and that boost from Jupiter at the same time. And I think that's one of the important things about this time, is that the sun's not going at it alone. You're not going at it alone. There's some type of support. There's some type of assistance coming through. You just have to lean on that and have the courage to do whatever it is that you have to do.
By the way, this happens on we're moving on to Wednesday.
Oh yeah.
So this Wednesday, which is I don't know, the 22nd,
22nd.
is when the sun moves into Leo, which I think is so it's gonna pretty much right away start opposing Pluto and then build for like the next few days until it perfects. Um, I don't know. I'm assuming it'll perfect by Sunday to Monday next week. I don't have it in front of me right now, and I don't want to move my
I don't either.
screen or stop
But
the.
it's okay. Safe to
Yeah,
say that it's going to happen soon, because
yeah. I am.
the sun moves a degree a day.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like 4 degrees away from from Wednesday, so probably Saturday, Sunday, or Monday this weekend at some point. But anyway, so it's going to be interesting. I think once the sun moves in this week, we are going to have, because the sun's way more of a big deal, no offense, Jupiter, than Jupiter. Like Jupiter is a big deal on like a background level, but the sun's a bigger deal on like a personal level. So where the sun goes, like, we feel it, people feel it a lot more because everything revolves around the sun. Without the sun, we really wouldn't survive. So when the sun moves into Leo and starts opposing Pluto, I think this is where, number one, the party for Jupiter and Leo begins, but it has a bit of a eerie start to it. So it's kind of like, Sleeping Beauty, Sun in Cancer, and she's been resting away, and then the prince comes and wakes her up, but right as she's waking up, he has to fight this huge fucking battle, and she's like, oh my god, what did I just wake up into? And he, like, there's all these monsters everywhere that he's having to, like, slay. And so, or it could literally be like, you have been getting ready for the party of your life for, like, ever, and then you finally walk in and people are fighting, and now someone just threw a drink at you and is coming after you, and you're like, what is going on here right now? Like, and so it's kind of like that, because there's this energy of oh, it looked like I froze there for a minute. But there's this energy of the sun coming into Leo that's really positive because Jupiter's there now. So it's both like, woo, we can finally feel this Jupiterian energy. We can finally get this like Jupiter party on the road, because we haven't, like, yes, Jupiter's been in Leo and we've been able to feel it to some extent, but with the sun in Cancer behind Leo, it's been a bit watered down, and Jupiter just got out of Cancer. So it's like, even though we can feel Jupiter in Leo, we're still kind of feeling the Cancer energy. And so it's like, we're not quite there. Like, and so we haven't really had the full like shebang, coming out on the stage moment of Jupiter and Leo yet. We've still been a bit backstage peeking behind the curtain, like, oh, I feel like my role is coming up here soon, but like no one's calling for me yet. What's going on? And so anyway, so once the sun comes in, it's like, oh, it's roll call, baby. Like, it is time. And then someone shoves you out on the stage before you're even ready, and now you're facing like a really angry audience, like throwing stuff at you. Like, that's basically how I'm seeing this, just some funny metaphors. But either way, I do think the really beautiful part about this opposition is that once the sun moves into Leo and faces the same opposition with Pluto that Jupiter just did, the sun is like, it looks like an eye, and that is why, because it is our sight. We can only see things when there's light. The sun is light. So it is our awareness. It is literally how we see things. And so when the sun moves into its home sign of Leo and faces off with Pluto and Aquarius, this is where I think we really start understanding and seeing and experiencing whatever the hell just happened with Jupiter and Pluto. Because again, that was kind of all like a background shift, or we feel things shifting, but we're not quite sure. We don't know if we can grasp it just yet. But the sun moves into Leo, opposes Pluto, and we're like awake, right? Like, the eye opens and looks at Pluto and realizes what just happened. And that's why I was describing like Sleeping Beauty, and then, waking up and there's all this crazy stuff going down. Now, it may not be crazy, okay? But Pluto is not usually a fun party, okay? Like, Leo's a fun party. Pluto and Aquarius is like not a fun party, all right? So it'd be a bit too optimistic and a bit too naive for me to say this is going to be great, okay? So it could be an eerie few days as the sun first enters Leo, but I do think it will help us in finally becoming aware of and shedding light on what needs to change within ourselves and our lives, and where we're going in our vision. It's like, again, we could either face off with Hades, or we could find the profound secrets and the knowledge of wealth, or the wealth of knowledge that is within Hades. It is an opposition, so it usually is a tension, a push and pull between, two different sides of the spectrum here. So we may be trying to, like, get our Leo vibes on, but then we're looking
Get our
back
party
at,
on.
yeah, like, we're trying to, like, okay, I'm finally here, like, let's go, Jupe's here, like, we got a party going, and then the cops get called, and you're like, well, great, like, now I gotta face these cops and, like, see if I want to tell them the truth or not, like, and I wore my best.
Or you know what? Even better than the cops. Like, instead of having the cops called, somebody who's like a mob or mafia or something like that, that's kind of running the party, comes in and is like, because it's that more secretive side of things, where like,
Right.
oh yeah, now it's time for you to pay up. You're like, I literally just got here.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's a great moment of Leo, Leo season starting, but it's also a very like, oh shit moment, like, and it could be in a very constructive way. Again, we're still dealing with like this huge, basket configuration here. So it could be in a very constructive way. It could be in a very like metamorphosis. This could be a huge like a funeral for our past selves. Okay, that could be very it too. Sleeping Beauty wakes up, but she ain't her anymore. Okay, she's her new improved version, and she looks in that
And she's
bed.
fierce.
And yeah, and she's like she's ready to attack, So and then she looks over and she's like, "Oh, okay, well, death to her, like we're having a funeral for her tonight." So it could be something like that. It could be a huge process of you finally facing a fear or this moment of empowerment or this moment of you finally seeing what has power over you or you finally seeing what needs to change or where you've been again, potentially where you've been in your own way. This is the ego or the consciousness, depending on which level of Leo you're in, facing off against the underworld. And it's kind of like, there's secrets and there's a wealth of information. There are beautiful things in the underworld. But there are also some scary things. And so it just really depends, it's going to be different for different people. So,
Yeah. And then right after the sun goes through all that darkness and is helping you see and recognize what's there, it's like it's beautiful because a couple days later he's already going to meet up with Jupiter and get that boost. But before that happens, Mercury turns around and stations direct and starts to move forward to where like a lot of like the lost in the sauceness that we've had going on for like the longest time is going to like start to really turn around, and we're going to be able to start really connecting and understanding things at a different pace and different level because Mercury's going to start bringing our thoughts and communications, our minds to start going forward because it is kind of hard when you're going through a whole lot of stuff and like you're just unable to like really think and process things properly. So when that starts to flip around and you're like, oh, okay, it's business time to go. It's go time. Let's do this. You're gonna have a lot more like helping you, especially because now Mercury's going to be able to help you start to mend and figure out the things that you have been going through for the last couple of weeks, and then he'll soon eventually join the sun in Leo and help with the party. Like we're gonna start like really, really getting more things going because the sun returning home is really good for everybody as a whole, especially Leo risings, but like everybody because it's like a part of you returns to itself. And while you do have to face something hard in the beginning, having Jupiter meeting up with the sun afterward, or the sun meeting up with Jupiter afterwards helps, and having our minds go forward again, having the forward momentum from Mercury turning around is going to be something that also helps, especially because as Tanya mentioned in another video, like Mercury has been running the shots, but like going backwards. So like it's like a freight train running around back, and like everybody's like hopped on it, like what are we gonna do? Like this looks really scary. And then now it's going to start going forward. So a lot of like the chaos of the last like few weeks and a lot of things that haven't necessarily come to focus are going to start to really come together for us.
I think I have a beautiful, perfect thing to call this phrase for this. It looks like an identity upgrade from hell. That's exactly what it looks like. With
I love that.
yeah, like Sun hitting Jupiter and Leo, and then opposing Pluto and Aquarius. Definitely looks
But
like.
I think
Go
it's
ahead.
important though because like sometimes you have to have that edge and you have to have that
Yeah.
connection to the darkness because if it's all light and shiny and happiness and then you don't really get to experience the beauty that this world and life gives to us through that duality. You have to have both sides.
Mhm. Yeah, no, and that's so much what my dreams have been about if I could just remember them. I remember the general like theme, but like no details or like and I know that like there there was one dream I woke up from and I had this like treacherous like grin on my face and I was like, "Yes." Like and then it like all I like forgot all about it like once I actually like woke up for good. I was like, "Damn it. Like what was that?" Like and I do have and they've all been about like dark and light and like all of this stuff and like but it's interesting. I was just thinking earlier that it really is so interesting because we have to have this polarity because the source or consciousness wouldn't know itself without other. like it wouldn't ever see itself. It would like not even know what it is or how it is or what it wouldn't know anything about itself. And so there has to be, you know, dark and light, which we all know. But I was thinking about this earlier because it came to me for like a real idea for Instagram, how through my shadow work journey and through my healing journey, um, it I and it's kind of like, you know, when you get to a certain place where you have truly healed, maybe not all the way, obviously, there's always more things that are going to come up, but there's this huge shift that I can really pinpoint in my healing journey, that from where I went from thinking I was this kind of like dark, tortured soul that like wasn't good. Like I really believed in my being, like I just was not good anymore. Like I just didn't think I was good. I didn't think I was a good person. I didn't think I was light at all. Like anything superficial or anybody that acted all light and stuff like made me want to throw up. Like I felt like I was like allergic to light for the longest time. And I really resonated with my darkness. Like it was a huge thing. Like, and I used to say on my channel, this was at the beginning, first couple years of my channel, I used to say like, we're not all love, light, and rainbows over here. Like, and that was when I still really, even though I started doing shadow work and stuff, I still really resonated with my darkness and identified with it. And then eventually at some point, through all the healing, through all the shadow work, I realized that that was the very reason that I wasn't progressing. And so then my healing became why I resonate so much with darkness and like learning to kind of let that attachment, you know, go, like of feeling like I needed to be dark and judging the light and like all of this stuff. And so, and then through that, I really started like it became a whole nother level of the journey where I started awakening to like actual feelings of gratitude and bliss and like all of this other stuff. And so eventually though, it's crazy because just over like the last several years, it's like I truly know in my heart and soul that like I am good, like I'm a good person. And I know there's like really no such thing as good and bad, so I'm just using words to describe something that's very hard to describe anyway. But like I know deep down that I have light in me. And of course there's always shadows and triggers and things like that too, but like something in me just like does not resonate in this. Like I can't even watch like like I used to love horror shows. Like that was my favorite genre. I loved anything messed up, screwed up, dark. And I can't even like watch it now. I'm like, oh my god, it's imprinting in my subconscious. Like it's too much. I'm having dreams about it. I don't like it. Like
Yeah, but I also wonder if part of that's because like you become more aware of how things actually run. I think that one of the things that also is beautiful of this like Saturn Neptune conjunction is we become aware of how much shadow stuff is actually out there
mhm.
and how much that shadowy stuff is actually being represented through the media and stuff that we're consuming, or through like the Neptunian stuff like the movies and whatnot, where you might just be a little more conscious of the fact that there's a lot more going on there than what maybe was
Yeah.
necessarily going on before, what you understood.
Yeah, no, and I did. Like, and literally, like, I think the year before I had that super light awakening, the year before that was 2021. And that year I became very awake to what was going on in the world. Like, got really into what was going on politically, really into what was going on with big pharma, like, really into like all that stuff. And started like taking more of like a natural route and like really into how corrupt the education system was, like all of that
Every
stuff.
system.
And yeah, basically, yeah, every system, and really started realizing how freaking just corrupt everything was. So that did, you know, eventually come before that. But I do think that there's a certain level of, yes, I think that our environment and the conditions of this world can affect us. But I also think that there's a personal responsibility, a personal ownership that one also has to have over its own life, or else you just become obsessed with all of it and it controls you. Very Pluto. You become way too obsessed with what's going on in the world and everywhere else and all of the corruption, because that's what I basically did in 2021, to where I didn't leave my house. Like I was literally like, I've got to start learning how to survive in the wilderness because shit's coming, you know, like it was. And then I took a vacation to Florida and I was like, I was like, oh, like, okay, maybe everything's okay. You know, like
The
maybe,
sun's still out. What do you
yeah,
know?
yeah, like maybe it's not as bad. Like, well, I mean, Florida was just going on business as usual anyway during that whole time. But like, I was like, okay, like people are like acting normal and shit, and just still living their lives. Like maybe, and that's when I started realizing, like maybe I'm the one allowing this to all control me in my life. And it actually occurred to me I needed to live more rather than live less because of everything that could happen or that I was learning, And so, anyway, so I just wanted to say that too in regards to the Sun Pluto opposition here and what you said about like, light and dark and learning to accept the darkness and, transmute it, alchemize it, heal it, all of that. So yeah, Mercury station's retrograde on Thursday, which we talked about, and I definitely think that's going to be very, very helpful. Whoops, very helpful and helping us
Stations
kind of,
direct.
yeah, like move forward.
Yeah.
And because yeah, like it's been retrograding through Cancer right after Jupiter left, and it's kind of been just sorting out all of the emotional stuff that we've needed to make sense of or that we hadn't quite completely seen or recognized yet, kind of pushing us to slow down and put our focus more on things that are nurturing, fulfilling, that can help us cool down a little bit because I think we were all very heated up from Aries season forward, with everything that was going on back then. And then we get to Cancer, which is that, first quarter square, and it's like, all right, now we need to cool down and chill out a little bit, lean into like our more emotional, vulnerable side. So the next big thing the nodes changing.
The next big thing is Saturn stationing retrograde, and literally the same day the nodes change.
Oh,
Because on
okay.
the 26th, yeah, 26th Saturn stations to go retrograde, and then the nodes which he will be in charge of are going to switch over into his
Yeah.
sign and the sun sign.
All right. Do you want to
So
start us off with that?
yeah, like I think it's very interesting to think of like nothing really happens without like some type of purpose or something happening. Like there were just years of like a lot of different things happening where like in 2025 the retrogrades were like kind of lining up really well with each other. Like it was just really weird to just see bam 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 bam. Like one
Mhm.
would go retrograde same time that that one went retrograde, the other one would enter shadow, and like there was just so much that was happening. And then this is another one of those things where like I don't think it's just coincidence that Saturn stops in the sky to put like a big exclamation mark being like, hey, pay attention. And then at the same time, that same day, the nodes switch signs to where we're like, there's a shift happening, and then Saturn's making it to where like really pay attention to the shift because whatever's happening with these signs from now on is going to be really important. And we know that it's going to be important as well because the nodes help us understand where exactly the eclipses are going to be happening, and that means that the eclipses are going to start to switch to shift from Virgo and Pisces into Leo and Aquarius, and that is going to be another again energy shift to where like we're going from water and earth into air and fire. And again, it's just connecting more pieces of the dots to where we're going to be looking for a good 2 years at least of like major changes happening on this section that we were just talking about. Everything that we've been talking about with this Jupiter, Pluto, with the sun entering into Leo, and then with the basket configuration, all of that's going to be emphasized even more now as the nodes switch over because they're like, all right, let's bring in destiny and fate and bring in all the rest of this to really switch things up on a personal and an individual level as well as for the world and the collective.
That reminds me, the other day I just randomly kind of got the phrase fate versus free will. And I think that could be very Leo
Oh,
Aquarius as well. Um, but I was kind of feeling like fate is going to be Pluto and Aquarius, and then plus the nodes moving there anyway, the North node's moving there anyway, and free will
yeah.
is going to be more Leo. So that's really interesting that you just said that because I just wrote that down the other day and I was like, because I don't even know where it came from. I was just like doing something else and just randomly thought of that and then randomly thought of, this whole Leo and Aquarius story that's really starting here. So, but yeah, I think that there's always little indicators in astrology. It's like, Mercury will go retrograde right at the time as we're having like a Virgo full moon or like, some big planet will
That
like
was such a crazy
change.
time. That
I
was so
know.
crazy.
They're like some big planet will like finally change signs like right at the same time that the moon's like right there. We're having some kind of eclipse or like, there's
Yeah.
like always weird little indicators like that, where it's like the astrology is just like lining up really weirdly in a like synchronistic way. So yeah, I think it's really interesting that Saturn retrogrades, right as the nodes shift. I think they shift like late Sunday night. So most people will probably feel it like once they get up on Monday.
Yeah.
this is definitely, I've been trying to figure this out, trying to figure out the nodes here for a while, and I don't like looking back with this
Yeah.
because a lot of the last, even like the last like Jupiter and Leo transit, one of the worst times of my life, but I'm pretty sure we also had like Saturn and Scorpio squaring it, and like it was like there's a lot of other shit going on that just made it not fun. And so I think that it's I think that we're different. Like, yeah, we can look for patterns in the past, but we're different. And I've experienced so many transits in astrology where like I last had them at a really bad point in my life, and it's really easy to be like, oh god, that's going to happen again. But it's like you're a different person now. There's different levels to these transits just because, and also it could also be many other things, and
Yeah, also the configurations of the other planets are also different this time. Like you mentioned how Jupiter before was squaring squaring Saturn. This time Jupiter and Saturn are going to have a more supportive connection to each other. So like that's yeah, another thing that you're bringing up right now is like just because things turn out one way before, which we do still look at because we want to see what different themes, like more than anything, when we're looking at the past, we want to see what themes and different topics were important,
yeah.
and then we can understand that we're going to have a different iteration of similar themes and topics this time. We don't have to necessarily be fearful of it happening the same exact way because we change, as she said, and the times change, and the planets, the other configurations also change. And everybody has their own specific chart to where these things could be hitting you in a completely different way this time, even if they're hitting somebody else in another way. Like you can have a good time, somebody else can have a crappy time. Like we do a lot of general stuff. Like when you watch her videos and she's talking about things, like you have to understand that yes, she's giving you highlighting where exactly you can expect these things and the way it'll likely play out, especially for like the collective. But for you personally, like you would want to actually reach out to her, get like a reading, and figure out what's happening with your own personal chart rather than just going off the general thing, because sometimes the general doesn't play out for each individual the same way.
Yeah, or they can reach out to you too.
Oh
Do
yeah, me too. Yeah.
you just making sure. I know. Speaking of
But
what you
yeah,
just said, though, I do want to say really quick, the other thing is that just because specific events happened the last time that you went through something even remotely similar to some of these transits, or you went through the exact transit before, maybe you went through the last Jupiter and Leo transit and it wasn't great, or you went through the last North Node and Aquarius transit and it wasn't great. It's not really looking about the exact specific events that happened. It's looking at, like you said, the patterns. What were the big focuses around that time, regardless of your decision making around them and what it all led to. And this, like, you want to think of it in like a bigger context, like for me, Aquarius is my seventh house. I can for sure say that the last time the North Node was in Aquarius, I got into a serious, like, long term. It had been my longest relationship at the time I was in high school. But I got into like my first serious long term relationship, and got pregnant, had my son, and so relationships versus me and what I wanted were very, very, very much a huge focus. Like, I had to basically kind of give up my own sense of, identity a bit, as you have to do when you become a mom. It's not just about you anymore. You're now raising a child and you're devoting your life to the future of that child, which is kind of very Aquarian too, if you think about it in a weird way. And my moon's in Aquarius, so of course I see it from that perspective. But yeah, like my relationship versus and my, me becoming a mother versus my identity was a huge, huge topic around that time. And so I can look back and see that. Now, that doesn't mean that's exactly the issue that's going to come up this time, or that's exactly how it's going to play out. It could just be the future of my relationships, or it could be that maybe I come back and find that identity I felt like I lost back then, the South Node and Leo this time, and learn how to incorporate that in my relationships or something. I'm just saying, like, bring up random stuff, but like, it could be so many different things. Maybe I join a sex cult, and like, I don't know, Pluto and Aquarius and something
like
else. Like,
when you have like when there's a lot of like Saturn and Neptune, like there's also like a really high chance for cultish stuff to happen during that time too. Like Saturn Neptune, it's just like, well,
yeah,
if Tawny joins a cult or Tawny starts a cult, anybody
yeah,
wants to join.
yeah. I mean, I could become like the next big cult leader. Like, who knows?
One of the important things to keep in mind whenever we're talking about the Leo Aquarius axis is that as people, as humans, like our species, we are geared towards social like endeavors. We are geared to be with people. That's why being exiled can sometimes seem worse than like dying,
Mhm.
because we're like the way that our bodies are set up, everything, we're just supposed to be in community, right?
Mhm.
And I think that that's another reason why this change here, this the change of the nodes onto this axis is going to really highlight that for us, and we're going to really have to come to terms with a lot of different things when it comes to that group versus self. We're going to have to figure out things when it comes to communities versus how we shine individually. And I think that with Jupiter, hopefully, what happens with Jupiter and Pluto during Jupiter and Leo during this time is Jupiter's going to give us a way of really finding a way to identify, have our own identity within a group, and have a way of connecting to community in a more healthy way rather than how it could possibly play out otherwise. Again, we do still have Pluto on the other side. Like I like we have to be conscious of both sides of things, but we all also naturally form part of a whole. And I think that part of what happens when we raise our vibrations, even if we don't necessarily, like Tani mentioned earlier, you don't have to go out and protest maybe, but something that happens when we start to really get to know ourselves and really understand who we are, and the part we play in the collective is our energy elevates, our frequency changes, and it will in turn affect those around us, and then also affect things that way. So you don't necessarily have to go out and do something crazy or be a part of something like too actively. Just you understanding and participating in like your own growth can make a big difference here. So like as this happens, sometimes we also will have to release parts of ourselves, like she said, those limiting beliefs of what we think is our ceiling. Sometimes we just have to let that stuff go so that we can bring in something else and then understand and like add to the collective in a different way. Like, this is all that Leo Aquarius things, and the nodes here are going to really start to kick things off within soon, as the sun and moon start to play their little game there. But that'll be something that's coming up next month, and we'll probably touch on that a little bit. But yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm optimistic. I am a little bit like, I wonder what's
There's a
gonna
hesitancy.
happen. I'm trying to embrace that unknown that I was talking about earlier.
You
Still,
keep making me think of like Frozen into the end. No, I'm just gonna play
yeah.
that. Like
Yeah, like it I've had a lot of like kind of weird like well, not a lot of, but I've had quite a couple like weird visions and I don't know what they mean, but they are a little bit strange and dark and I've been kind of debating on whether I want to talk about them like on my channel or not just because I just don't find it very helpful to like sit there and like scare people about what's coming and I want to be optimistic about this too. You know, like I really want to be optimistic about the North Node entering the same sign as Pluto in
okay.
Aquarius in a Saturn ruled side, you know. So go
Oh, I
ahead.
think it's interesting though because the Libra is more on the pessimistic side and the Virgo's on the optimistic side, and that's just not the way that typically plays out.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, I have Virgo in me too. So, oh no, you're
What I
fine.
was gonna say is that like maybe what you can do is help people understand, because we both have Virgo placements. Maybe you
Mhm.
can help people understand how like we've just experienced the nodes in Virgo and Pisces. Now they're going to switch into what's it called. So if you can help people figure out like different things that they've experienced that have changed in those areas of life, they can kind of understand what types of things are going to be moving on.
Well, with the South Node through moving through Virgo and just like with so many different clients I've had, so many like there definitely has been this massive, almost like theme of perfectionism and criticism and being detail oriented and kind of getting lost in all of like the little, you know, the little stuff.
Details.
Yeah. But like also just small things that like don't matter. And there's been this push with Pisces energy to trust more, to tap in spiritually, to let go, to forgive. Like I feel like last year especially there's just so much healing going on. It's kind of been this healing of self-criticism, of shame, of you know, procrastination, perfectionism, you know, and it's brought a lot of that up for people so people can unravel it and heal it. But again, if you don't know about this or you're not using it in that way, it can just feel like, gosh, like my perfectionism feels out of control. That's you still attaching to it. Again, the South Node reveals our attachments as well. So it's like that's you still attaching to it and using it as some kind of defense mechanism. Because most of the clients I talk to, their problem isn't their perfectionism or their criticism, it's why they're so attached to it. Like, what are you using to guard your, like, why, how is this becoming a guard for you, a defense for you? What are you actually doing here? And there's usually some deeper rooted fear underneath of it. It's just the perfectionism and the criticism is just a symptom to something deeper. And so, I always take them deeper so they can work through it, and transmute it, and then come back to that level of grace and divine wisdom and forgiveness and healing of the Pisces North Node. And so I feel like that's, what it's been a lot about. And we've had a lot of Pisces energy anyway the last several years. So you could say the last several years
Yeah.
was really Piscean. There's just been this like huge focus on energetics, divine feminine, magic, and the magic of the universe. And I'm not saying all of that's bullshit, because it's not. And I was into all of it too. But we're moving into a different time now. And so yes, that is 100% true. But once the nodes move, it's going to be a bit more rational, logical with the North Node in Aquarius. And then with the South Node in Leo, it's going to be a bit more like about your spirit, your consciousness, your fire, your heart, that experiential, you know, that experiential kind of side that keeps you alive, the spirit within you that keeps, everything moving so that you don't have to think about it. And um, I feel like with the Pluto, North Node being in Aquarius, I think that it's going to be this kind of push towards potentially, uh, again, kind of unlocking the power of the mind, but also knowing how to deal with the changes that are going to be happening in humanity with Pluto and Aquarius and the North Node being there. I think this is kind of a start of like a new society or a new way of like, humanity potentially like being born here.
I think that
Stay
humanity being
optimistic.
born in a different way can definitely be a part of what we see. We are talking about the collective, we're talking about Aquarius, and Pluto has that ability to transform and change things. And again, we're going to probably see the fears come about of different things that can come about because of that, because we could be literally talking about humanity being changed through technology. Like that's a thing, and we're seeing different technologies be introduced to actually move us into that direction, like different chips and stuff like that. It is definitely a reality. This is stuff that we're seeing. And I think it's going to be interesting also to see just how much we're going to see, because the North and South Node are only going to last on this axis for a couple of years, and Pluto's going to continue on. So and Jupiter's only going to be on the Leo side for a year. So we're going to see just like how these different planets and different pieces play into these different parts that are going to be extremely highlighted for the world over the next couple of years. Like we will have the eclipses starting next month, and they're going to really start to help us understand what exactly we're going to have going on in these sections, because we had a preview with the eclipse in Aquarius back in, what was it, February? Was it February, I believe?
Yeah.
We had an
Well,
eclipse.
yeah, it was February.
Yeah, I was trying to remember whether it was January, February. So we had that first eclipse that gave us a little teaser before the nodes moved in, and then as the nodes move into these signs, there's going to be a shift in the way that things start to work in the world, and the way that our consciousness is starting to really align with everything that's happening, and it's going to bring things up. As Tanya mentioned, a lot of the times, like for things to grow and for us to be aware of things, like they get brought up, and we're going to see light and dark of society versus like our individualist selves, and just we're going to see a lot of changes.
Yeah, I think on a very basic level, if I just kind of take Pluto out of the equation here, North Node in Aquarius, South Node in Leo, is going to be very much about what role we're playing within our own lives and then also within the world. And, this is kind of like the best way that I can describe Leo and Aquarius, right? So I was at like a bar one night years ago, and there was this band playing, and they were a really good band. Like they were really good at playing the music, but
Mhm.
no one knew the songs they were playing. Like I guess they were playing their own songs. I don't know. but no one knew what these songs were. And so the audience started kind of like requesting, like, hey, can you do a cover to some like known songs? You know, it was kind of towards the end of the night anyway, like the place was gonna be closing in like an hour. And they're like, you're really good. Like, can you just give us some like known songs? And they were so rude to the audience and kept saying, no, we're not gonna do that. Like, if you don't like it, then just leave. And I like, I kind of had this bias of Aquarius for a while after like the 2020 and 2021 saga days, once I saw how
The
Saturn,
dark side.
how powerful Saturn can be in Aquarius. I was like, holy shit, I do not like that. So anyway, but that kind of started flipping things for me because I was like, okay, here the audience is trying to like, give you some feedback, right? And tell you like, hey, you're really good. Um, can we just get down with maybe can you play a song or two here and there that like everybody knows? And they just kept being so rude and people kept asking them. They kept getting more and more upset about it and angry about it. And so I feel like this is a really great example of when your ego actually can become too big and too like where you stop kind of it's like they were still like a small band. And I think as like whether you're a big band or a small band, you still need to be able to relate with your freaking audience, like you still need to be able to like if you want fans, if you want people to follow you, if you want people to like get to know you, and your audience is giving you suggestions and you're getting angry at them and telling them no and acting like assholes, you're not really going to amass a very great loyal following at that
Following.
point. Like
Yeah.
you're not a big movie star. You're not like a big, star at this point. Well, I guess not movie star if you're a band, but you're not like a rock star yet, like you're not at that level yet. And even if you are, if you become too full of yourself, eventually it will come back to bite you in the ass. Like, the audience will stop listening to you or start thinking you're full of shit or stop relating with you on some level anymore. And
That's
so,
another thing that I think is kind of interesting about these times too, because when we think of the Leo Aquarius axis, we also have another side of things that we haven't necessarily talked about. Whereas Leo can be the rulers, Leo can be the entertaining class. Like we
mhm,
did mention how it's all like the entertaining and having fun and stuff, but like we're also talking about these Leonine people, like the people that are literally ruling us
influencers, like
and
influencers,
influencing. Yeah,
celebrities, leaders, yeah.
exactly. And they're going to be receiving that energy of the South Node. Whereas on the North Node side, we also have the communities and people that might start to really start engaging with those energies differently to where they're like, well, we don't necessarily like put too much stock in whatever it is that you're saying because of something like that, where they're like a little too high on their horses. Like they're like, we're the ones that are able to tell you what to think and do. And then people are like, no, no,
Yeah.
we're going to fully reject that now. So that'll be another interesting way of seeing how things play out with that aspect of things as well.
Oh yeah, like I definitely think that like celebrity culture, like all of that is going to be crumbling. I do think that like a lot of again, outsiders, just normal people, and I feel like I'm already seeing this too. I feel like a lot of just like normal everyday people that again relate with everybody, or not
Hmm.
necessarily everybody, but like a certain type of person or certain group of people. That's like, hey, I'm just like you, like and like, it's all good. Like I'm not some like, guru or anything, like, and so I think that there's going to be this like, again, this like pendulum with these two of, hey, okay, this is, my social role. And is that matching my heart or my morals? Or is my heart and my morals even in the picture anymore? Am I just playing a role? Like I think it's going to be this kind of push and pull between where the ego can be very helpful and where healing needs to be done around the ego and the heart and the self versus where the ego gets in your own way. And actually, it creates this ripple effect of a lot of issues with others or society or the your social life or where you don't feel like you belong. Aquarius and Leo are very known for being about belonging and not belonging, like you kind of mentioned earlier, for learning to be yourself. But then when you sometimes get too full of yourself because there's always like a progression. Like you go through stages where you're like, I'm going to be more authentic. And then you become more authentic. And then you really start liking who you are. And you start building this ideal of yourself in your head. And that ideal is a beautiful thing, because you're like, oh, damn, I'm the shit. I really like who I am. I'm fucking awesome. And that's great. Like, hype yourself up. The problem is that when you start not living up to that ideal in your head, or that ideal in your head stops matching your actual reality, for instance, that's when the problem starts. So, and I've done this several times where like I've been through really massive peak periods where I'm like on top of the world and I'm like, oh my gosh, I freaking love who I am. I'm loving who I'm becoming. Like, I'm obsessed with myself. This is great in what feels like a very healthy way. And then something shifts and I start having like a dark night of the soul, or, like really my mind starts going to a really negative place and I'm not feeling as confident as I was. I'm starting to feel really insecure. I'm starting to question everything. And I become so attached to that ideal of who I just was. And that process is what takes me forever to like move through it and get out of it. And it becomes this whole freaking healing thing about me detaching from that ideal. And so, and not, and being able to love myself now in the moment instead of just be attached to some past version of me. And so I think that this axis is like, okay, where are you too attached to your ideals of yourself? And also, where is that being either controlled by others, pointed out by others, or where do you need to, you know, find the love? Because I think that the truest, highest frequency of the nodes here, of the North Node being in Aquarius and the South Node being in Leo, is that when you can find love within and love yourself for who you are, you become that much more open to loving the collective and being able to offer that love to the world and potentially help other people or guide other people through times of struggle, Pluto and Aquarius, or through times that are uncertain or unknown or whatever. And so I think that that's kind of the higher expression of this nodal axis of like, where do you need to find that love and belief in yourself, but not from an egoic place. And again, not because the ego is always bad, but from this place of true light and belief in yourself. Um, this is kind of a push and pull between like feeling like you're the shit and being humbled and feeling like you're just everybody else. Like it's literally like the person that feels like I am chosen, I am special, I'm here to do something big, and the person that feels like, man, I don't know, like I'm just like you know, like what's up? Like, like it's that, like that's Aquarius and Leo. It's like Aquarius relates through relation and being like resonating with other people, whereas Leo is like, I am uniquely me and I am this divine being here to bless you with my presence. And both are true. It's not that one's bad or good. But they both balance each other out, because if Leo gets too full of itself and too attached to a false idea, and these are like people that like literally are like delusional, like, and I've questioned this a lot because a lot of people say like be delusional like when you want to manifest or quantum leap, but then you like see people that are like delusional, like they think that they know everything, but they clearly freaking don't. But they have this idea of themselves that is so like just like freaking like that's just so over the top, that's so like not even real.
Connected to reality at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that it's like, and they think that they are like that they are right about everything, or that like they're super smart, and can beat anybody in some kind of intellectual contest or something. And then when it actually comes down to it, reality doesn't match that, but their belief never changes. And it's like, okay, well, why aren't those people like, somewhere? It's like that's when I feel like it's an unbalanced version of it, where the ego becomes too inflated, um, and too kind of full of itself, where it's no longer connected to reality or how other people see it. And in that moment, those times, that's where Aquarius comes in to be like, dude, nobody
Bro.
sees you in this way. Like, like you
Yeah.
need to start embracing reality here. Like, and so there is like the individual needs the group, but the group also needs to honor the individual. And this is a tale as old as time that we've always seen,
On
where
that note, though, I'm wondering if we're going to see possibly also like the existing leading class like kind of fall apart, while natural leaders and people that naturally like it's driven of them and it is more focused towards the other and more towards like serving their peers. If those people are going to rise up and the people that are in the collective and the communities are going to be more welcoming towards something like that, because that's another part that of the South Node is, while yes, it does force you to release different attachments and things like that, it also brings back things from some people, things from the past, natural gifts and natural like abilities, to where those natural leaders might actually also start to feel that come back in during this time.
Yeah.
That's my thought, at least.
The word vigilante, I think, is going to become very big with Pluto and Aquarius with the North Node there. I feel like we're going to have, not to say that some current leaders or current famous people or big deal people couldn't change. I already kind of see that happening, not like necessarily on like a worldly level or a national level or whatever, but like, there's people that I've like either looked up to or admired or have just followed in general, like on social media, that were a big deal, or like, really big pillars of a certain genre or community, that just all of a sudden, like the last couple months, are like just changing everything up. Like I feel like I haven't been true to myself. I haven't been real. I haven't been authentic, being very, very honest, like very, very raw, very direct, very like, just not caring about like the money, fame, status, power thing anymore. And that's, very this axis too. I mean, you
Yeah, I
have
was just thinking that too. As you
fame
were
and
saying it, I was like, that
yeah,
works.
fame, status, Leo, money,
Leo,
power,
100%.
Aquarius, like there. I mean, I think all these topics are really going to come up, but I really could see that, like, I mean, we have to be honest. Pluto is dark, and not to say that dark is always bad, but there are going to be some things from the underworld that we are not expecting. Okay, that like so
Secrets coming out too.
yeah, so listen to this. I know like we've already been doing this for so long, so I apologize.
I apologize for the
But,
people if they're not, but like I'm into this. Like, it's like we're just
yeah, okay.
going.
I mean, yeah, fine. I didn't want you to be over there like, damn, this take forever. But anyway, I was watching, I love the show The Unexplained. And I was watching that show the other night, and it was talking about this like whole year that there was like these mass sightings of all kinds of different creatures, okay? Like winged creatures that so many people had seen in person, and all over like North America. Like went over so many different areas, and they were all like different creatures, and it was like they were crazy. And so many people saw them. Like it wasn't like, even like, I think the president at the time had to come out and like issue a statement about it, and said he also believed that people were seeing them. So I was like, okay, what was going on? So I looked up the year. I can't remember now what year it was, but it was, I'm pretty sure it was North Node and Gemini conjunct Pluto. And I was like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. Like winged creatures, and like, and it's conjunct Pluto. And then they were like never seen again after that. Like it was just very freaking weird. And it was North Node on Pluto. And I was like, this is freaking weird. Okay. But anyway, I think that there's probably going to be some weird shit. And I just want to be
Oh,
real
yeah.
about that. Again, unknown. Um,
Since Pluto has been in Aquarius, we've also heard a lot of things about possible extraterrestrial, extra dimensional
oh
life. Like
yeah.
it's come to the forefront a few times, and even more so within this last little bit of time, to where we'll probably see a whole lot more developing with that as well, because it's part of like that disclosure type of thing, like information coming from the darks, information that could have been held secret at some point, again coming out because Pluto's dredging everything up and making us deal with things that have just been there, maybe hidden for the longest time.
And sometimes it starts as chaos, just like we saw with like the massive Pluto conjunctions in Capricorn with when the South Node was there. Sometimes it starts with chaos of like, maybe at first it's like a bunch of false information that's released. Like,
Mhm.
again, there was kind of a lot of false information that was released about COVID, or a lot of things they were hiding that they never told us, that we didn't find out till way later. And so, not to say everything's going to be a lie, but I would just be a bit weary of information continuing to come out over the next several years, honestly. But I think that it's important because, as we said, Pluto can rule fear and control, and fear can be used to control people. And so,
Mhm.
but I do think with the North Node there, the North Node isn't always like, and this is what's interesting, okay? The North Node isn't always like, this is what's happening. It's more like, this is where we have this urge to go, right?
Mhm.
And like, even in, Vedic astrology with Rahu and Ketu, like, Rahu was the,
Insatiable.
right, insatiable. And so there's kind of this like, with the North Node being in Aquarius, there might not necessarily be this like, oh, this is what's happening, and there's just, groups of people rioting in the streets or something, and sex cults everywhere, or like whatever. There may just be like, okay, like we are feeling in some way that we we want to get right within ourselves, South Node and Leo, and there's like all this ego stuff is getting brought up, all of this stuff where we're seeing what's fake. I think there's going to be a lot about superficiality and things that just don't feel authentic, or I think there's going to be kind of this like for in a more for lack of better words, it's going to be kind of intense when I say it, but this canceling of anything that feels superficial, fake, that feels like you're just doing it for you, or you're just performing, or you're just whatever. Now, some people are going to be very attached to this, again, South Node. But I could see with the North Node, looking at it from the perspective of the North Node being in Aquarius and us kind of yearning for that. I could see there being, a lot of yearning for massive change in society and with collective systems. Now, where I think that could get out of control, again, Pluto, I think that could get out of control in terms of, and I've heard a lot of people say this, let's just destroy everything. Let's just tear it all down and completely start from scratch. Now, I'm not necessarily saying, I don't know, I'm not the seer of all seers here, and I don't think that that I'm not saying that that necessarily wouldn't be the right answer, okay? But I am saying that I think there could be a lot of consequences that could come with that, where Jupiter rules order, Pluto rules chaos. And so in these two signs opposing each other, there's kind of this like, okay, maybe we feel this yearning towards, okay, well, why don't we just destroy it all and rebuild something else? But potentially not, because I would feel like if that was going to happen, it'd be more of a Pluto and Capricorn thing.
Yeah,
With Pluto and
yeah.
Aquarius, it's more
But
mental. How do you
and
socialize?
Aquarius could also be the societies that are experiencing that as well, like
Yeah,
the breakdown of our societal structures and whatnot, and our groups and our communities, where they're dealing with the breakdown and the reconstruction, which again could be a good thing in a sense, where like that side of things is being reconstructed in a more um, heartfelt way or connected to something like that. It's just like, as you were mentioning before, fear is a really good control tool, and Pluto and Aquarius can be technology wielding fear to control people when you've got the Pluto playing into Uranus and Gemini, where Uranus is changing and everything in like technological pieces, but also communications and media and stuff like that as well, where that there could be, again, as you mentioned, a higher chance of maybe different, not trustworthy information being put out there, and different things possibly also being blown way out of proportion to get people into a fear vibration. Because one of the good reasons why fear is good for controlling people is because it literally shuts down your higher thinking processes. Like you can't think above certain
become
levels if
narrow-minded.
you're in fear, because you're in flight or flight. Exactly. You can only think of what you can do to survive. And sometimes it's easier to just follow somebody that's telling you what you need to do to be able to make it through, because you're trying to survive. And if you've already been told that the way to do that is by following leadership or whatever, and it's telling you what you're supposed to do, then it's like our brains and the way that we function, or most people do, except for the divergence, as you mentioned before, like they function a little differently. A lot of people will follow into what they're actually programmed to do. It's just natural behavior to like, oh gosh, things are getting really, really bad. Let me have you protect me, and then giving up everything they need to in order to perceive to need to in order to have that protection and safety.
I also think this is going to be about things being really based around the personality versus depth, especially with leadership and just people in the world. Like if I think over like the last several years, especially like in the online like business world, you hear like build a personal brand. Um, I don't know if that's going to be the trend anymore once the notes move. I think that if it's just all centered around, which is like great in theory, and like I mean, I was, I used to have that kind of way of thinking too, and that's something I've kind of allowed myself to be a bit more open-minded about and not so attached to like other things that I've learned in the past about, doing stuff online. But like I think that this can be taken into any category if it's just based on like your personality, people may start wanting a bit more depth. It's like, okay, but what do you know? How are you going to help me? Like, what is you, what, how do you serve, right? Like, what are you actually
Exactly.
changing in my life versus, oh, you're just fun to be around or you're entertaining to listen to. And I also think that I just like had this like weird revelation while you were talking, and it kind of like, I'm like, I don't know for sure. Okay. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know that this will be it for sure, but it would make a lot of freaking sense if they brought AI into the government. Um, so, and if you think about it, having leaders in the government that are very based on personality and all about them, and like South Node in Leo, people may want this more like, okay, well, or somebody, I don't know if it'll be people, and obviously it won't be all people, but somebody may think, because I've literally heard this before, people say this before, but somebody may think like, oh, just put AI in charge of everything, because then it's not biased, and then it can't discriminate, and then it's not just all based on the personality. Like, I could definitely see that as a potential. Not saying for sure, and I'm not saying whether that would be good or bad, because I really don't know either way. Obviously, it'd be a bit freaky. It'd be a huge change. But I do think that, again, the AI conversation is really interesting because Aquarius does rule society and social systems. So this is going to be like, charities. This is going to be organizations. This is going to be how people organize together, how people are grouped in, categorized, etc. Anyway, in our world, Aquarius can also rule decentralization, though. So it
Mhm.
can be this kind of like breakdown of what was once a very few personalities can start to be more widely shared. Um, but I also think that there's going to probably be a lot of really deep shit coming out um,
All kind of stuff.
about systems, a
Yeah.
lot of social systems. But so what's really interesting, again, going back to that South Node in Capricorn in 2020 that led to 2020 with Pluto, I saw the South Node in Capricorn way more than I saw the North Node in Cancer. The only time that I really saw the North Node in Cancer was when, again, at the very beginning of COVID, the lockdowns, and we all were forced to be home. So it's like we were like pushed into the North Node. We weren't necessarily like, I just want to be home all the time, like we
They're
were
like, no, you're
like,
gonna stay at home.
right, like we were really like pushed into it. It wasn't really this like yearning or desperation. And I
I
definitely
don't know if
thought,
you heard this or not, but that actually didn't happen. They didn't tell us to stay at home. Like,
oh, what?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you pay attention to things that these people that were once telling us to stay at home and whatnot are saying now, they didn't actually tell us that. It's so
Oh
weird.
my God. Oh my God. Well, I guess then the North Node possessed us, and we went after that insatiable desire to stay home all the
On
time
their
and
own.
lock ourselves
Uh-huh.
in. Yeah. And just, and our works even decided to let us work from home, like that
Of
was a
course.
crazy thing too. Like they just were like, yeah, cool. So anyway, but so it could be that we actually do, that the Leo South Node is more prominent. I mean, I've seen a bit of both of the recent South Node and North Node of Virgo and Pisces, but there's so many different ways it could play out with Pluto there. It's very unknown, but we can say there will be a lot of Pluto topics of power, control, fear, destruction, the unknown, transmutation, wealth, the wealthy, corruption, all of that in the sign of Aquarius, which is
Pluto and Aquarius having a lot of tech billionaires.
mm-hmm. Yeah, well, again, it is kind of in like the sign of the people, right? So, I mean, now, on the positive side, there could be a lot of new ways for a lot of more people to have wealth or to gain wealth in some way, or to have a path to wealth, or to have more choices. There could be, corruption that is exposed and really messed up social systems, but then also those social systems are changed and,
Hmm.
for the better in some way. Um,
That's
there
how Pluto works, right? He exposes so that they can be dealt with.
Right. And I do think it's a balance between the two. So if you find that you are on the obsessive Pluto and Aquarius side of like needing everything to change, or like needing everything to like fall apart, so that change can happen, there is that balance of Jupiter and Leo, the South Node in Leo, of like order and humanity and remembering your humanity. That balance between the mind and the heart, really, Aquarius is shadow side is it can get so rational, so intellectual that it becomes cold and shut off from its heart. And then Leo's downside is that it can get so hot and full of itself that it burns people around it without realizing, again, ruled by the sun. And so, in the sun, like nothing can get too close with it to it without burning
Hmm.
up, right? It's very individual, yet so many things rely on it from afar, but it's just up there doing its thing. And so with Leo being ruled by the sun and that solar energy, it's very individual, but it's also with Jupiter and Leo, with Jupiter and Leo without the South Node, I'd be like, okay, this is like, really us, like moral, virtuous leaders and, leaders with integrity and rigor and valor and like all of these different, great characteristics that you think of when you think of like a really brave, a really courageous, a really great moral leader, But with the South Node there, it's kind of saying, okay, where have we lost the plot, or where do we need to in some ways get back to something about ourselves that we've maybe long forgotten. Parts of ourselves that have been maybe in our way or not allowing us to move forward. And I think that a lot of this Leo energy is going to be facing a lot of fear with Pluto. Um, Regardless if they're still in the opposition or not, I think we're going to be feeling this still for like the next few months, even though they've, kind of passed their
Hmm.
opposition by that time, just because these two signs are still going to be very prominent and eclipses start. And so,
The Aquarius full moon, it's definitely gonna be an interesting one too, because like the fact that the sun is literally like conjunct within minutes, Jupiter, that means we have the Jupiter Cazimi at the same time as the moon is right out there hanging out with Pluto. That means that one, I love the fact that like that Jupiter Cazimi is making it to where we're having like an expansion of our ability to see, our expansion of our ability to understand, and it's connecting at a very core level to our heart and soul, like it's making it to where we have that greater sense of spirituality, sense of like being connected to our being. And at
yeah,
the other side of things, we're having like the deepest, darkest freaking moments of our lives because like the moon is connecting us to the darkness of Pluto. So
yeah,
like it's like a part of us is just being uplifted and like released and freed. And the other side's like really like wow,
yeah,
there's so much that's happening. So like part of you is being brought up and the other part of you is just like what is happening? Why does this feel so bad? Why is there so much going on? There's so much happening in the world, and
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's going to be so interesting. And since it's a full moon, it definitely is going to be kind of reflecting something back to us from Pluto. And this is where, and
Hmm.
these are those moments where I was saying earlier where Pluto and Aquarius has really shown me like this is where you're getting in your own way. The moon reflects back the sun's light. So the moon is kind of always loyal to the sun, you could say, in a way, because it's always like, all right, like you are putting this out, I'm going to reflect that back to you. So with Pluto there, I feel like it's like, all right, sun, like you are putting this out, like you and Jupiter are like doing something, but I'm going to show you the other side of this, or I'm going to show you what needs to maybe even be felt first internally that you haven't been wanting to face, or a deeper fear, deeper truth, deeper insecurity that needs to be faced first before you can move forward on this, courageous journey that you're trying to go on. It's like the moon is always trying to help the sun understand the other side
See
to
itself
have this,
back,
yeah,
like
to
you
see
mentioned
itself
earlier. You
back.
mentioned like it's creator seeing itself, right? The
Mhm,
the the sun would be like that creator spark, and the
mhm.
moon is the circumstances and everything else coming back to reflect it back, so that the sun,
Right,
so that you can understand what it is that's happening because the moon, even when she's not being seen, is still doing things. You're still feeling things, you're still going through it. It's just you're not typically able to connect as like directly to it because now like the sun's shining back and then the sun's shining it onto the moon and the moon's like, all right, bam, look at it.
right. Yeah, I mean, I've had so many experiences like that on like full moons and stuff where it's just like where I'm, like I'm seeing a whole nother side of something I had not been seeing up until that point, or like all of a sudden all these like emotions arise out of nowhere that
Hmm.
usually are there the whole time. It's not like they just
Hmm.
appear. It's like, oh, okay, I can see where this has been kind of building to this, or I can see where this was kind of coming up. It's almost like I had this experience one time where I kept feeling like I was like in the middle of like a grieving period and I kept feeling like I was getting signs from something, like a lot of synchronicities, a lot of signs. I randomly get emotional, randomly get these thoughts in my head and I didn't really know where they were all coming from. or what was going on or what they were trying to tell me. And but I just felt like I needed clarity or something. And then on a full moon, it all came together and I realized like it was my intuition leading me back to myself the whole time, but happening underneath my awareness, underneath my ego, so I couldn't see it. And so it felt like things outside of me, like weird things were happening, but I realized it was all me. It was like my intuition. And that's like just one of many experiences I've had about that or had like that, but it's really interesting. So, oftentimes around an Aquarius full moon, I usually find that there's an intense lesson almost every time, an intense theme almost every time of just be fucking human. Like, it's okay. Just be fucking human. Like, stop. Like, you're worrying too much about how you look or how good you could be or how you're not good enough or whatever. Like, just be freaking human, you know? And embrace it. Like, there's always this like, hey, being human is sexy kind of theme with an Aquarius full moon. Like there's been so many times where that's happened. And like even last year I remember I was really struggling because I was really in that Virgo South node during the summer. And I was like really into like I was getting criticized from someone in my life and I was starting to take it personal and believe those things about myself. And I just was feeling very small. And the Aquarius full moon came around, and I just happened to hang out with my Aquarius Rising friend that day. And I was kind of just telling her about like how I was doing and what was going on. And just both her energy, her just level of just not giving an absolute fuck how human she was in that moment, and her words to me, just all combined, was just this huge permission slip in the moment of like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, that's fucking human. Like, who cares? You know, like, oh, okay, like you made this one little mistake. Like, who the fuck cares? Like, and it's just like she started describing all the times that she like makes mistakes and way bigger mistakes. So like, you know, and like it was just so funny because in that moment I just really had this like release of like, oh yeah, like I've been trying to like keep, and that's why I think Leo moves into Virgo, because there's this like, yes, like I love who I am. I have this idea of myself that I love, that I'm bigger, that I'm good, you know? And then you get into Virgo and it's like, how can we make it even better? How can we perfect it? You know? And then when you kind of get mirrored back to you that like you're not you're not that in some way, shape, or form. You get rejected or criticized or whatever, made fun of, whatever it is, it's like, oh, maybe I'm not that, you know? And then so yeah, I feel like the Aquarius full moon, and I was literally just, I had memories coming up from previous years recently of Aquarius full moons where I'm talking about the same exact thing about embracing being human. And it's like every single year, right around the Aquarius full moon, that comes up for me. And so I think that that could be a huge theme of like, hey, just like, you know, we're not always going to be perfect. We all have something in common. Every single one of us on this earth, we're all human. That is how we all connect. And yeah, we all have differences within our personality, within our looks, within our interests, within our likes. Like there is no one that is exactly like you. But don't forget that just because of your differences, that it makes you so different that you forget that you're here to be human, you know? And I think that Pluto being with this here is probably going to make it more intense. People are probably going to have a lot of emotional breakdowns. People are
Oh
probably
yeah.
going to have a lot of issues sleeping around that time, a lot of weird dreams, a lot of deep subconscious work is being done around this full moon and showing you where you are still in chaos or have fear or out of control in some way, emotionally. And so there's likely going to be like a deconstruction of some old emotional stuff that we are letting go of in order to come back into harmony, Jupiter and the Sun, Cazimi and Leo, with ourselves or with our hearts. And
And I
so,
like that you mentioned something about the past because at this time Saturn is actually retrograde, so it's taking us back.
yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, and you know, with Saturn ruling this full moon, it could have something to do with the Aries archetype as well, you
And
know?
again, it's bringing us back to ourselves also. Like Aries and Leo both are very much connected to our being, who we are, how we are. And Aries is like the imposition of our will, and how maybe like that is going to be reevaluated and rechecked as well because Saturn in this spot doesn't do too well. Um, and we might be able to see how different it might even be something like we figure out how different parts of our being that we've constructed um out of like need or necessity, like in a very haphazard way, and we've kind of accepted as part of ourselves doesn't actually need to be there, or how that's like affecting other aspects of our lives. And because of like it being brought to the surface because of some really deep dark experience or something that we go through, or some deeper feelings that we're having during this time, we're able to then deconstruct that and then build into something else. Because a lot of what Saturn's doing during the time that he's going through Aries is kind of like re-evaluating and restructuring how we are,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense.
I think, and our ability to deal with hard shit. Like
Yeah.
our ability to like challenge ourselves, to be challenged, to deal with, to overcome difficulty. Aries is up for the challenge, but oftentimes because it's a cardinal fire sign, it burns out very quickly. And so
Hmm.
Saturn here is like, okay, choose what challenges mean something to you, and you might have to work harder for what you want. It might not come to you as quickly as it normally would without Saturn and Aries. But I think that with Saturn ruling this Aquarius full moon, we might see a lot of like, I think the story I told about like my friend helping me remember like it's okay to be human is a really great example of this, because the I was kind of part of a group at the time that I just was not vibing with. Like I just didn't feel like I related to any of them. I didn't feel like anytime I was like myself, it just I could tell like we were not on the same wavelength, and then at the same time I was getting like criticized. And so with I think Saturn and Aries now with this full moon in Aquarius on Pluto, it's like our deep shadows, fears around belonging, rejection, could be coming out. But I also think that it could have something to do with the groups that we're involved in, or the people that we're around, or teams that we're a part of, or a work environment that we're a part of, or a social group that we're a part of. But it could also be that like maybe we get reminded from a friend of something that gives us a huge emotional breakthrough, but that also with Saturn and Aquarius, or Saturn and Aries, reminds us that like, hey, it's okay to go your own way. Because shortly after that conversation with my Aquarian rising friend, about being human and about me kind of realizing, you know what, I didn't belong in this group, and I'm sick of pretending to be something I'm not to try to fit into it, or shrinking myself to fit into it. I eventually left that situation. And so I think that Saturn and Aries could very much be like, go your own way. It's okay to be the lone wolf, is how I kind of see Saturn and Aries. It's like, you doesn't mean that you won't have other people, or that you won't have the right people or the right groups into your life. I had the right groups in other ways in my life, just I had another group I wasn't vibing with at the time. But it's also like, okay, I'm going to find my own way. The trailblazer, Aries, the trailblazer, the pioneer.
Hmm.
So it's like, okay, maybe you're reminded from a friend that does vibe with you, that you are on the same wavelength of something that helps you have a breakthrough, but also helps you remember your independence and your ability to do something on your own, or to be who you really are, or to, you know, um, be able to challenge yourself to have the capability to deal with something that could feel hard or restricting in some way. So that's also kind of how I see that as well.
Cool.
All right, are you ready for the horoscopes?
Yep.
Well, I guess, do you want to start with Leo rising? Yeah, I feel like for Leo risings, the analogy I was giving earlier was like Sleeping Beauty, basically waking up. I feel like that's really about to happen as Leo season begins this Wednesday. So I really feel like we're waking up, but there's also a bit of shots fired, so to say, where we're waking up and there is something that, yes, we are coming back to ourselves, and we are coming back to our vessel, our vitality, our body, our energy, our spirit, but we're also like facing off against something that that we need to face. This could definitely be facing off against something within our relationships, realizing something that maybe has been hidden from us about other people or even about ourselves. This is really becoming aware of ourselves and our environments and people outside of us, and also what needs to change with that this week. And so, as much as this is like starting the party finally with our signs, and we're finally getting out of a lot of that 12th house energy, although we'll still have Mercury in our 12th, but for the most part, we are finally getting out of that 12th house energy. I think that we're probably not going to really see the true, like, party, woohoo, it's Leo season effects until next week after that Aquarius full moon. I think that's when we're going to really realize and integrate whatever reinvention or transformation or shadowy stuff that we need to integrate. um, that's when that's all gonna, I think, cement more off or more. So, um,
Yeah.
you can go.
Also, like I like what you're saying here too, because it is like there's gonna be a lot happening during this time where for us Leo risings, it's gonna be a lot of us and the other, whether we have like a relationship, a business partner, or something like that. There's gonna be a lot of going on over these next couple of weeks where there's a highlight showing us a lot about ourselves and a lot about what we have going on with ourselves and from the perspective of something that's coming from without, whether there's some type of deep secret or something that's been going on the other side with our partners, or whether there's some type of deep secret that helps us understand something about ourselves. There's something that's happening that is really focusing on us and the other. And there are other parts of life that are going to be playing in as well, like our belief structures, our friends. There's going to be a lot that's playing into this next few weeks that are going to really bring us into a different way of seeing things. And I think that a change in perspectives on who we are and how we are and what exactly we want and our relationship to our partner or that other is going to be really much at the forefront for these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, there could be a lot that changes with relationships and self and identity, how you see yourself, all of that starting this week. So just really be on the lookout for that. And as always, comment sexy Leo rising down below if you watched till here. And let's go ahead and move on to Virgo risings. Do you want to start for Virgo?
Virgo risings, this is going to be playing out in a very interesting spot where we're probably going to become more aware of different dynamics that are at play when it comes to our rest, recuperation, like the things that are going on behind the scenes, as opposed to things that we have going on in our day-to-day lives and our diets and stuff like that. Like for a lot of Virgos, like you might actually be going through a time where you start to really understand how these different areas of your life are playing into each other and how it's very much necessary for you to understand the different undercurrents of the things that you have going on in your day-to-day lives and maybe with work, and how that's affecting your ability to really like take care of yourselves and maybe how you're maybe not taking care of yourselves and how different tendencies that you have of like maybe self-destruction and things that you're doing that are self-sabotaging are really just kind of coming around full circle with different things that you have going on the other side. So I think that this is going to be a time of like understanding what it is that you have going on in your life and maybe using that as a way of also understanding things that you don't necessarily see or you don't necessarily understand about the way that you go about life and how that could be isolating you or it can be doing different things that are necessarily playing out in your best interest.
Yeah, I feel like um, this week really could bring up a lot of where things like where you are wanting order or wanting some kind of harmony or coherence, where you're maybe wanting space for yourself, but then there's also this like chaos or something out of control or something like messy or crazy going on with work or coworkers or a team or your routines or your health or a health situation that comes up. And so this could be like you realizing where your external day-to-day habits, environments, duties, tasks, responsibilities are reflecting back to you something that is actually going on with inside of you. Okay, and so with Pluto in your sixth house being so involved in, the sun moving into Leo this week, Jupiter opposing Leo, and the sun opposing, or I'm sorry, Jupiter opposing Pluto, the sun opposing Pluto, this is definitely showing you or shedding a light on what's hidden from you subconsciously, where you end up thinking one thing, but maybe it's another. Maybe where you have hidden some things out of your awareness and how that is showing up on an actual physical level in your life or within your mind as well, with Aquarius in the sixth, within your mind and creating chaos, whether within your mind, within your workplace, within your habits, within your routines. It could be something along those lines where you are having to change your perspective on what maybe you thought a problem was or solve a problem in a different way, or you're realizing that you are part of the problem. Like something like that, like it's kind of pointing back at you in some way. And yeah, there could be a lot of themes around power and control and dealing with kind of breakthroughs or changes happening this week as well that could seem a bit out of your control or could seem a bit chaotic at times, but it's really pushing you to discover something, some kind of code, some kind of lessons around personal power here. And so
And Mercury going direct is probably going to help you start to get your life in order as well. If you've been feeling like you've been going through it and like things just everything in your life has just been completely off, you might actually start to see things start to go forward. And there seems to be some type of energy here also involving your friendships and whatnot, where maybe if some of you have been fighting with your friends or having different issues, or there's just been something going on there, maybe it'll start to like start resolving itself and you'll be able to continue to go forward. Or some of you may actually be like rethinking like some of your future plans during this time. I think that might be big for a lot of Virgos, where your future plans, what you thought you wanted and whatnot, you may have been like reconsidering that, and it's been causing a lot of like turmoil within yourself. You may actually start to really figure some things out and start to move forward in that.
yeah, I agree with that as well. And also with the Mercury retrograde in the 11th, it would make so much sense with now the sun moving into Leo and Jupiter being there. And it definitely is like there's like a part of you or a part of your life that is now feeling like, I just want to freaking hide, you know, like especially with like Mercury going retrograde in your 11th. Maybe you've had like all these different weird connections with other people where they're just like, you know, spilling all of their emotions on you or something. And now you're like, I just want to like do me and like, you know, take a vacation or like relax or get away from all of this emotional stuff. But then it's like, okay, well, you start doing that, but then there's like chaos going on at your job, or you know, there's something that happens with like your routines or your health or whatever that you have to like really look at here, or a fear that you have to face with all of this that is actually leading you towards, you know, something that I think eventually helps you. Like I said, some kind of lesson in personal power. So alrighty, comment down below, sexy Virgo rising. If you watch till here, we're gonna move on to Libra rising. So for Libra rising, a lot of what's happening this week is in your 11th and your 5th house. Um, I think that obviously there's been a massive social upgrades that have already been starting for you, but that are really becoming a big deal this week. You know, with Venus, your ruling planet in your 12th in Virgo, you're probably not having the funnest time right now. You're probably having a lot of difficulties, maybe relaxing. And I mean, I don't know, some of you guys could be feeling like you are just wanting to, you know, do your own thing, like garden in your backyard or something, or clean your house. But there's some big social thing going on, you know, especially starting this week, if it's not already started, with Jupiter being in your 11th now, with the sun moving into your 11th and ruling your 11th. It's like you are becoming brighter or more seen or more visible or more public in some way. Or, you know, at the very least, maybe you're attending more events or more social outings or more, you know, situations that involve other people in some way. But there's also this opposition with Pluto from both Jupiter and the Sun. And so this is happening in your 5th house. And we've been talking a lot, Libra risings, about how this is kind of like letting your freak flag fly. It's kind of like a popularity contest with Leo in the 11th, but then these oppositions to Pluto in your 5th, it's like, can I really like allow these weird, quirky sides of me to be revealed? Like, what if people don't like me for it? And so there seems to be some really big change or some really big shift that you're coming up against here starting this week that's really, you know, kind of pushing you to the edge of what either you need to change to continue to go in the direction that you're going in, or what you may need to reveal or face or accept in some kind of way. So,
Yeah, I like that. And I like that this is playing out in the 11th and 5th house. So that means that it's going to be playing out in a way that's going to be more favorable to you in the end. Like, even if you may be going through different moments where you're just like, what is going on with my friends, my friend groups? What's going on with like, or you're out there and you're doing things like in public and you're seeing how that's playing out in different aspects of your life. I feel like this is going to play out for you at the end of the day in a better way. And using this time to actually maybe take into account like the different things that you are doing for fun, the different things that you, or how like maybe some people maybe also have different vices and whatnot that they need to figure out and get into order. And maybe your friends or being around different people can help you kind of understand that. And if you're one of those people that is actually feeling kind of seen right now and kind of like know that you might want to work on that, because it can help you legitimately change things in a way that's going to help you really catapult yourself to the next level, especially when it comes to you thinking about different things that you want for your future and whatnot. Like, you can really understand, like, use this time to like see what you have going on and then make the changes that may be necessary for you to be able to support what you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really good opportunity for Libra risings. If you're trying to do anything socially, whether that is write a book, would be excellent with Uranus and Mars in your ninth, and Mercury in your 10th as well. Or you're trying to go viral online, or you're trying to just do anything socially where you really like put yourself out there. I think, this could be really pointing to that. Now, it will involve you with your ruling planet Venus being in the 12th, overcoming a lot of internal criticisms that could be self sabotaging you behind the scenes. But I mean, what better way to work through that stuff, than put yourself out there? So it might not just be this week, like it literally could be for like the upcoming several weeks. But I think that yeah, this is definitely a time for Libra risings where there's a lot of work being done here on your social life, your relationships, and a lot of change happening with, what you want, what you're passionate about, all of that, and how to really reveal that in some way. So let us know down below, Libra risings, if you stayed till here. Comment down below, sexy Libra rising, and I'm gonna move on to Scorpio risings. Do you want to start us off with this one?
Cool. All right, so for Scorpio risings, this is going to be an interesting time for you because your ruling planet is in your eighth house and really giving you a chance to connect to possible past traumas and things like that, or connect to something that isn't typically too seen to help you work out other things that are going to be playing out in a very important axis for you. Whereas we've got the sun in your 10th house, Pluto, well, the sun and Jupiter in your 10th house, Pluto and the moon in your moon at some point, at least, in your fourth house, where it's helping you figure out some things when it comes to your work and home life balance or lack of balance that you may have, and maybe different things that are happening in your home life that may be restricting you from having the growth that you want when it comes to your public life or to your career. That there's something that's happening here that's going to help you maybe gain perspective and understand what needs to be changed going forward to really help you get what you want to out of the career section of your life or your public sector, like something that's going to bring you, because part of you is wanting to go into this section, part of you is like kind of really thinking about your career as the next couple of weeks progress, and this may actually give you the opportunity to figure some of that out and maybe understand a lot more of what you have going on in your home life, things that are possibly going on with your parents, like something that's on the more like foundational side of yourself, and maybe gain some more power over what you have going on there, especially if you're willing to face things for what they are.
Yeah, I've been saying for Scorpio risings for several weeks now, this is such a pivotal time. Anytime anything hits the angular houses, like this is a big, big time for you. The fourth house is like, what are you hiding from? What's the power? What are you giving power to in your home, in your family life, in your past, like the skeletons in your closet, so to say? Um, what's like, I feel like there's like a hiding energy here. I feel like you're potentially performing something in the 10th house of profession, like you're putting something out there into the light. You are, putting a persona on or a personality out there into the light. You are, trying to shine in a big way, or you're trying to. You either are or you're trying to. There's a lot of incredible, fabulous things that you can accomplish here. With Jupiter in your 10th house, you may be feeling this inflated ambition, this drive to go after what you feel like you are meant to do in this life, what you want your adulthood to be about, what you want your story to be about, and really claiming that main character energy in your life again. But with Pluto in the fourth house, there's like a lot of facing some really deep fear. It could be survival fear. It could be fear that's been around for generations through your ancestry, through your bloodlines. It could be fear around family, home, the past, and feeling, like there's certain things that are out of your control. And so this is a time where it's like it's time to start facing those deep rooted fears so that you can truly find your potential. Because this year, yes, the South Node will be in your 10th house, but that means it's actually going to be a bit easier to grasp your potential. It will feel the most familiar to you, but you will be going through lessons of unraveling anything that is not actually you. And so if you are playing a certain character, playing a certain role that really isn't authentic to you in your life right now, you are really observing that over like the next several weeks, and then also like year and a half as the nodes move in here and bring up this story even more. So it definitely is a time of you figuring out what needs to change. And this change is going to affect your day to day life, your routines, your habits, your work life. You really challenging yourself and doubling down, creating discipline for yourself to deal with hard things and to move through challenging situations on a day to day basis, so that you can rise into the ideals that you have for your future. And those ideals are going to have to involve you, though, also facing your past and facing where you may be scared of your own power. Honestly, I think that's what you're really hiding from. I think that you may think that you're hiding from something else, but I think you're really just scared of your own power. And that's more of an intuitive side coming out there. But yeah, so do you have anything else to say about that?
Yeah, I think it's also interesting that I'm noticing it right now that we have the Mars Venus square at this point too, where there's also connecting something between like those again, it could be past traumas or something like that, but it could also be like occult practices. It can be something that is hidden typically that is also affecting different relationships and things that are going on with your friendships. And I just had it like mind fart, went blank. Oh
Okay.
no.
Could also be
Um,
finances too.
yeah, finances, other people's money,
Yeah.
um, joint resources.
I think that's good though. I think that's
Yeah,
good for Scorpio.
yeah.
All right, Scorpio, comment sexy Scorpio rising down below if you watch till here. And we're going to move on to Sagittarius. I feel like they have such like a grand name. Um, All right, so for Sagittarius, we have a lot going on in your ninth and your third. And if you follow my channel, you know, if you've been watching my latest videos, I've been talking a lot about how for Sag Risings, this has a lot to do with what you think you know versus what you don't know. And then also what you don't know versus what you do know. And in a lot of ways, with the sun entering Leo this week and, starting its opposition with Pluto that Jupiter just went through in your third and ninth houses, there is a massive awareness and experience coming in, massive understanding coming in of what needs to change, but also like within your like thoughts, your beliefs, your philosophies on life, but also what you're powerless over. With Jupiter in the ninth house and the sun here, I could see a lot of Sag risings, if they're not already, either getting into politics, already in politics, potentially, being very consumed by everything that's going on in the world, being very consumed by anybody that is a leader or famous or of status in some way, or one becoming aware of their own status or trying to go for something of status in some way. Um, the ninth house can be educational, but with Leo here, I think there's this kind of focus on status within education. And I think with knowing that the nodes are going to be moving into Aquarius and Leo at the very end of this week, I think that there will be kind of a unraveling of anything that does not feel authentic, anything that feels surface level, fake, performative within your beliefs, but not just that, within how you see others in the world. And so, if you're watching a lot of things go on in the world or on the world stage, or there's certain people you admire or look up to, or there's certain people of status or in certain roles and leadership roles or in just famous roles, well known roles in the spotlight in any way, I think a lot of your views or perceptions may start changing of some of these people over like the next year and a half. And I think what's really happening here is you may start seeing the world as like one big stage, and you may start relying a bit more on what is in your power, what is in your control, and your day to day environment and your day to day life. Um, I feel like at times you may feel more pulled to focus on your local environment, your local community, rather than making some big impact in the world. Now, not to say that some of you may not be meant to make some big impact in the world or can't still focus on that if that's where you're going, but I think that you can focus on that and still take that journey while also focusing on what is more within your power, what is more within your control, which is more of what's closer to you, more what's in your day to day environment, your day-to-day friends, the day-to-day people you hang out with, the day-to-day places around you that you frequent or that you pass. I think that's where you can make a lot of change happen in like the upcoming year and a half. So, um, yeah, and also Jupiter is your ruling planet, so Jupiter will, also is already in your ninth house. So there is kind of this huge, it's almost like you are Leo at this time with Jupiter there. So even though the South Node will be there, there is this kind of like you maybe rethinking or unraveling some of your old beliefs about the world, about how you view things, how you teach things, how you educate yourself, what you actually believe about the world, but also how you've been presenting that or how you are affected by that, your ideals of yourself through the lens of all your beliefs, because our beliefs really control a lot of who we are. Like if I'm like a Christian, let's say, which I'm personally not, but if I was, I might behave, now not saying always, but still there are some ways that I might behave that are very differently than other people. I might go to church every Sunday. I might, do certain things or see things in a certain way. Our beliefs really taint our vision of an experience, and Leo seeks to find meaning, Jupiter seeks to find meaning. And so you may start seeing how your beliefs really control your identity and also your experience of life. And that could also be a really big topic as well.
Yeah, I do think that it's also really important to keep in mind that because your ruler is actually in your ninth house now, you might actually be really drawn to figuring out whatever it is that you have going on with your beliefs, with your philosophy, how it is that you see foreign lands and foreign people. Like your mind actually might naturally start to gravitate to kind of help you figure out where it is that you stand on these things, right? And understanding your relationship between those things, as well as like maybe the day-to-day things that you do to take care of your belief system. Like if you're somebody who isn't Christian, for example, and you have different rituals and things that you practice, you may actually start to find more power in those day-to-day rituals and those different things that you're doing because you're starting to see this is truly what I believe. This is the way that I feel, and you're really connecting to it on a different level. And you're starting to see how maybe if I were to do this, it will help me to get this. Like people, again, if you practice some type of rituals and things like that, you're like, if I do these money offerings or if I do these different like whatever it is that you believe in, you can start to see how you can gain more power using that. Or maybe you can see how different communications and thoughts that you have are also affecting you on another level. Because again, if you're practicing something other than one of the traditional Abrahamic religions, you're probably a lot more aware of different ways that the things that you say and the communications that you have and your mindset, how they're affecting different things. And maybe during this time you become more aware of the fact that maybe I need to switch that up. You can find different power in that, and maybe be reminded of the power that's in your thoughts and your communications, maybe the power that's in your immediate space. But you may also discover different things that are wrong in different areas of like your life, maybe different issues that you're having with your siblings as well, because some people may be discovering that maybe I need to disconnect from these different relationships that I have or these people that I'm feeding into that aren't necessarily good for me, or maybe they're bringing something negative into my life, to where you can start to see the different power dynamics that exist there and maybe how they're affecting your mindset and how they're affecting the way that you believe things, and like decide what it is that you're actually thinking and feeling when it comes to these things, because a lot of your thoughts and beliefs actually really impact the direction that your life takes as a whole. And connecting this to that is going to help you understand what you have going on with your life. And again, it's going to be a time of like maybe having to have hard conversations. Maybe it'll be a time where you're having to deal with harder feelings and different things that come up, especially around the time of the full moon, that will help you then again discover what it is that you need to do to make different changes, because there are different parts of your life that are playing into this, to where it's connecting really key aspects of your life, and how exactly you are, how you're thinking about things may actually really be impacting your ability to change and transform and transmute a lot of maybe the negativity and bring it into where you're bringing yourself up to the next level.
Yeah, I agree with all that. You like made me think of a few last things that I'll say really quick and then we'll move on. I think that maybe some Sag risings could be like kind of chasing these grandiose experiences of education, spirituality, philosophy, religion, politics. You could be kind of chasing these like grandiose ideals. So that could look like, more big mainstream famous, ideals. But then I think that with the North Node moving into Aquarius, you actually may be pushed more towards like, I don't know, connecting with your own lineage with the third house, right? I often forget that the third house can rule alternative beliefs and rituals, like you said, Will. And so you may get actually more drawn towards alternative spirituality or your own practices. You're kind of combining together like your own, your own things that relate more to you. I also think, it could be more like you chasing these grandiose experiences and then actually realizing, like I told the story earlier about Ram Dass, how he was this huge, big, spiritual person, and then realized eventually, like, oh, I came here to be human, not to live in this like higher vibration of perfection all the time. And so I think that you may have some of those revelations over the next year and a half as well, where you really come back to like, oh, I'm human, and real change actually starts in the small moments of my day to day life or in the interactions I have with my siblings, my cousins, my neighbors, the person at my coffee shop, like things like that. You may start doing more local things around you rather than looking for some big, fancy thing that's like halfway across the world or something. Now, not to say that you can't do that or that you won't have experiences like that that could still be super meaningful and powerful. But these are the kind of polarities that you'll be playing with, kind of the big, well known beliefs versus your own human beliefs, your own original thinking. And so, comment down below, Sexy Sag Rising, if that resonated with you and if you watched till here. And we're going to move on to Capricorn Rising. Okay. Capricorn Risings, I feel like for you, this week with the sun moving into Leo season beginning, and it kind of starting, to get close to Jupiter and opposing Pluto. Obviously, this is happening in your second and eighth house, so there's a lot coming up here to do with other people's money versus your own, to do with, basically anybody that you share resources, finances with, and any leaders in that space as well. But then also your money, your income, your resources, your assets. And so you could kind of have maybe something happening this week that feels like it kind of sheds a light on something that maybe you weren't sure about financially, or maybe you didn't know about. Maybe you get a bill in the mail, or maybe and I know that doesn't sound great, so I'm sorry, but maybe you have something that just comes to light here with the sun entering Leo, and it causes you to have to change something within your own resources, income, assets, etc., in some way, shape, or form. Now, I think that, a lot of this is aspecting Neptune in Aries, and then Saturn, your ruling planet, in Aries. It will be aspecting that eventually as well. And so I think that this could be coming back to, in some way, your home, family, and personal life. You may be kind of trying to do a lot of things on your own, or you may be kind of trying to be independent. But I think that this opposition could be, for some Cap Risings, about asking for help or accepting help in some way, shape, or form. And I feel like this could also bring in some fears. Like for some of you, it could just be fears, survival related fears that you have around money, income, assets, possessions, anything to do with basically karma as well, and energetic transactions. So it doesn't even have to just be physical. Investments, taxes, like anything like that could be coming up here that really affects you financially this week. But it's kind of like, okay, what are you giving power to? How do you want to respond to this situation? And this is just kind of the start of something, because this is really building into next week when we have the Aquarius full moon. So if something does come up this week or start this week, it'll probably resolve itself around that Aquarius full moon, or it'll probably at least come to its peak around that time.
Yeah, I agree. Like, there's definitely a big emphasis here on your resources versus somebody else's resources. There's a big emphasis on like maybe fears and maybe different thoughts and beliefs that you have um, that are affecting the way that you actually see your finances, the way that you maybe different fears that you have around financial stability. I think that financial stability is really big for Capricorn people, like Capricorn risings, especially because you want to have that stability. And if you don't have that stability, then it really throws you off. And as she mentioned earlier, there's a chance that maybe you'll have to like consider what you have going on with like family resources as well, and maybe figuring out some other way of approaching things that can help you possibly calm some of those anxieties that you may have when it comes to your finances right now. And I think that over the next couple of years, as the nodes progress here, you may be able to figure out different ways to become more independent, and you might find more ways to actually have that more stability in that financial sector of your life. But during this next long bit, you might want to be open to approaching things differently. As your ruler Saturn is in a different spot for himself, part of what happens during this time is that you have to think of new ways to do things because you don't have your typical resources. And so understanding that that's part of the energy may actually help you be okay with things that you weren't necessarily okay with doing beforehand.
Yes, I want to add this one thing for Capricorn risings. I think this is a time that is fundamentally, like, on a very, very deep level, changing not only your beliefs and your views about money and finances, but also just you on maybe like a cellular level, or like on just the way that you operate in this area of life. Because, yes, we're talking about mainly like the sun coming in and opposing Pluto this week, and then the nodes moving in these signs, but like, this is a, this is also Pluto and Jupiter ending their exact opposition, and again, this bigger story of your second and eighth house happening here. And so I think that this is bigger than that, where this is just fundamentally changing your financial life and what you want for your financial future, potentially forever. And so I'm not saying that's necessarily happening this week per se, but just in general, over time, that's what I think is happening here. I think a lot of the beliefs, the perspectives, the views that you've maybe had on money, wealth, investments, building wealth over the last however long, several years, are all coming up for either reconstruction or to, kind of reinvent in some way, or to let go. For some of you, this could be a time of taking big risk, or accepting some losses so that you can grow or expand financially and within your leadership financially in some way. This could be an investment risk for some of you as well. But I think that, yeah, I think there's something really, really changing here, like on a fundamental level with finances. So, alrighty, comment below, sexy Capricorn rising, if you watch till here. And we're going to move on to Aquarius risings. So for Aquarius risings, this opposition with the sun moving into Leo this week, opposing Pluto in your sign, and then also the nodes moving in at the end of this week to Leo and Aquarius, is happening in your first and seventh house. And so this is definitely a really big deal for you. These are your angular houses, and these bring up usually big turning points and a lot of change. So what ends up happening here is that oftentimes there's a huge reconstruction and reinvention of the identity, especially with Pluto in your sign being opposed by Jupiter, and then also the sun this week, and then the nodes moving in later this week. This is going to be a very, very big time of you really getting, honestly, like, very deep with yourself, very deep with who you are and who you want to be in this world, who you want to be in your own life, and also dealing with potentially the pressure to stand out, or to kind of go along with what potentially is popular or trendy in some way in terms of relationships with other people. There's a lot of self-other dynamics here. And so you could really be dealing with, like, quite a few ways I could see this happening for Aquarius risings. Number one, your beliefs about relationships and other people are changing drastically on this during this time. You may see where maybe you went with certain beliefs in the past, or were conditioned into believing certain things about relationships based on what was popular, trendy, etc. Also, I think that this could be a time where you are influenced by people other than yourself in some way, that are very expressive, very charismatic, very Leo-like, even if they don't have Leo in their chart, popular, or full of energy, very alive, enthusiastic, etc. And you may feel like, what, their life looks fun, or you may admire their life for some of the superficial things that they have, or some personality traits that they have. But Pluto in your sign is like, well, I want something deeper. I want something more real and raw, and I have to stick to myself, or I have to hide myself in some way. You may want like more privacy or something. But then you also feel this pull to like put yourself out there, be a part of this, party of whatever you want to call it of other people or whoever this is in your life. With Saturn in the, your ruling planet in the third house, I think there's a lot here about learning to be more direct about what you feel, what you think, even if it doesn't always seem like it has the best result. It may feel like, oh, me being so direct caused me to get rejected. But then it's like, okay, well, then that was not an aligned person for you in the first place, you know? So, yeah, you can go ahead, Will.
Yeah, so I like that you touched on a few things that are going to be very important as well. Like, again, we're on the first seventh house axis. There's going to be a really big emphasis on you and the other. Like, cut it however you want to cut it, whether it's going to be a business partner, a love partner. Like, some of you have been going through different things in your relationships as well. And you're starting to see how different aspects of your relationships are affecting you personally, and how different aspects and things about yourself are affecting your relationships. These things work in tandem, right? And during this time, you're going to be able to figure out different things. And since your ruling planet is in the third house, communications are going to be important. And you have to understand that there's also probably something going on within your immediate vicinity that's impacting things as well. Maybe it could be like your neighborhood, different things that you have going on in your neighborhood, or like maybe you have like different problems happening right now. There's different construction or something. I don't know, and it's making you a little more irritable, and it's affecting your relationship. That could be what's the case for some people. Different things could be happening possibly with your siblings as well. Like there's something here that's showing that there's a lot of importance being placed there as well. But really, what I want you to focus on is what you have going on within yourself, and how different things from your relationships are also playing into that, how you are in your relationships, how they're affecting you, and how these different things are legitimately shaping the rest of your life. Because as Tani mentioned, we're talking about the angular houses. So like different things that you have going on here are going to affect your home life. They're going to affect your relationships as well as your career. Like it's all getting put into one, because we're talking about you yourself directly. A lot of this energy that's coming in is going to be showing you a lot of your importance in things, because the nodes and by the end of the week are going to be moving into Aquarius and Leo, and that's really highlighting you as a person, you and your like path along the in this life, right? And you're going to have some things that you have to resolve within yourself, and you may become really aware of some of those things when we have the Aquarius full moon next week. But be aware of the things that come up so that you can help yourself understand a lot of the power dynamics that are playing out, especially between you and your relationships. There's something that's happening here that's going to help you gain a better idea of what you have going on there, and it'll help you figure out other aspects of your life as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a big time for Aquarius risings. For some of them, it could be like an identity crisis, but I think if you look at it more as like a reinvention or a transmutation, I think that can be really helpful. So comment down below, sexy Aquarius rising, if you watch till here, and we're gonna move on to Pisces risings. Okay, so for Pisces risings, hopefully y'all let go of some of that control in your relationships, because I know I had a lot of you last year that were really struggling with that, and the time for that is finally ending. So hopefully you learn to trust yourself more. Hopefully you learn to like have the faith in your mother effing self. And sometimes that's, it's like knowing when to trust yourself and learning when to, because you trust yourself, when to allow other people to be other people and not try to control them. And so anyways, the nodes are going to be moving into Leo and Aquarius this week. And then also we're going to have the sun moving into Leo, opposing Pluto and Aquarius, and coming up on Jupiter there as well. And so this is a huge time for Pisces risings because it's happening in your 6th and 12th house. So as we've been talking about in my last several videos, when we've went over your horoscope Pisces, I feel like this is definitely bringing up where you may crave or where you have already gotten or yearn for recognition, to be seen, and to really take on some kind of leadership role, or where you already have in your workplace. And so it's like where you want to feel special, where you want to feel seen, where you want to shine for what you're good at, feel like you are recognized for what you're good at here. And maybe some of you guys have already been recognized for that. Maybe you're coming into this with recognition already, or maybe you're not. But either way, with the South Node moving in here, I think it's going to really maybe unravel some of the wounds that you have behind all of that. Because I think that with Aquarius being in your 12th and Pluto being there could be a lot coming up in terms of what's going on unconsciously that feels out of your control, but that feels like you are maybe very scared of rejection or not belonging or like being different. Yet when you go to work, you put on a smile and you become, this, really admirable person, but maybe on the inside, you're like, I'm freaking weirdo. I have like 1,000 different crystals in my house and I freaking, run outside naked in my backyard to ground. And like, I'm just like this weirdo. And yet at work, I'm like this, kind of person. And so for a lot of you guys, you could be feeling this tension between like, maybe some of you have gotten recognition or gotten to a certain place that you are happy with within your career, but then you feel like you have these self-sabotaging tendencies coming up. You feel like, how can I keep this? What if I can't control myself? What if I can't control my triggers? What if people don't like me? What if I feel weird? What if I feel different? What if I mess it all up? Like all of these different things could really be coming up. But I also think that this is a time where really focusing on your energy, your vitality, your habits, your health, your wellness can really, really, really be helpful. I could see a lot of you guys like getting into breath work to cleanse the body with Aquarius in your 12th house. I could see a lot of you guys really getting into some kind of like energetic, modality or practice or something like that. I think that could be very helpful as well. I think this is going to be a lot about changing your perspectives and your beliefs on how you live your life on a day-to-day basis, whether at work with habits, routines, or tasks, and how that factors into what's going on with you unconsciously. Like some of you guys could be like, okay, I'm finally at this place in work, but now I'm having nightmares about like it all crumbling. What does that mean? And it's like, well, Pluto's behind the scenes, in Aquarius in your 12th, asking you to face some of those unconscious fears that you have right now. So that's what I'm seeing for Pisces.
Yeah, and I think that one of the good things about this time as well is that we are going to experience the Jupiter Cazimi. So that means that there's going to be a part of your life where like you just feel aligned. Like you're gonna like there might be a moment over this next week where you're just like, my goodness, this is what it's all about. And
Mm-hmm.
it kind of gives you that urge and that sense of knowing that will help guide you because I think that Pisces rising more so than most people are really connected to something like that goes beyond, right? And being having that like confirmation come from above, it seems like, or from within, that kind of helps you understand where things are going, where things are at, will be really great. And even though we're gonna have the Aquarius full moon that may bring up some uncomfortable feelings and whatnot, and may help you understand different aspects of life that are possibly kind of throwing you off that maybe are coming from different things that you're doing yourself. There's still just that inspiration and that hope and faith that comes through that's going to help you really connect to yourself and connect so many different parts of your life together to where if you use this time wisely and you really pay attention to when we have that Jupiter Cazimi, you can like I would say take notes around that time of different impressions and things that you have, different dreams that come up, like especially like dreams that come about around the time of the Aquarius full moon. You may be receiving different like information coming through. Some of it may be scary. I understand, but write down things if you're capable of doing so. That way you can have that information to take with you because there's a lot of really potent energy for you right now, and I want you to be able to take care of that. You may have to change your things that go on with your work, things that are going on with your day-to-day routines, maybe your diet. Like something may have to be adjusted, and maybe it'll be like you have to rest more. Maybe a lot of you need to rest more. Figure out different ways of like achieving that rest if it's a little uneasy right now. Just take in the energy of this time because you have a really, really special time about and connecting to the higher wisdom that could be coming through and helping you possibly be able to understand different aspects of your life can really help you legitimately connect and change a lot of yourself.
All right, comment down below, sexy Pisces rising, if you watch still here. And we are going to move on to Aries rising. So for Aries risings, hold on. Oh, okay. There's the sun's moving into Leo. Leo season's beginning this week, and it's going to come up on its conjunction with Jupiter And it's also going to be opposing Pluto. And so we have this big opposition happening between your 5th and 11th house, and the nodes are also going to be entering these areas at the very end of this week. And so this is a huge kind of pendulum swing, you could say, back and forth between your heart's desires, what you want, what you crave, creativity, love, romance, entertainment, having fun, being theatrical, what you're passionate about. Also, children and sexuality can happen here, or dating can be ruled by this area. And then we're going to have that versus, your 11th house of Aquarius, other people, bigger collective goals, bigger group goals, friend groups, social life, social events. And so this could definitely be a time that is starting now, that's going to continue over like the next year and a half, where you feel the need to really start buckling down and getting clear on what you really want, what you're really passionate about, what you really desire, what really makes you happy, and to really kind of find that alignment internally and within your heart, but also how you can maybe make some bigger collective change with all of that. With Saturn ruling Aquarius right now, well, not right now, but always, but Saturn being in your sign right now, ruling Aquarius, um, this is a big deal. I talked a lot about this in the year ahead horoscope for Aries, where Saturn being in your sign is like, okay, buckle down. It's time to get our shit together. It's time to get real. It's time to grow up. But then at the same time, you have the Sun and Jupiter in your 5th house, where it's like, also like find the things that you love and don't forget to laugh and have fun and be childlike, and, find the things that you love and that you're passionate about. But then there's also like this really intense energy of like, change the world, or like carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, or like do something for humanity's sake, like. And so it's a very interesting dynamic here happening for Aries risings. I think that a lot of Aries risings, this is mainly about, I mean, especially this week, like, okay, where do I not share my heart or share what I love with the world because maybe I'm scared of other people judging me. I'm scared of rejection. I'm scared of not belonging. I'm scared of, people not getting it, And I think maybe what Aries rising could really be scared of right now is the power that you may have at this time to influence people, because it's a lot of power. Pluto's in your 11th house. I think you have a tremendous ability at this time to influence people if you can get your own shit together with Saturn in your first house. If you can buckle down and be direct about what you know you need to do for yourself, and also, being willing to find what makes you happy, being willing to find what actually fulfills your heart, and share that with the world. But that doesn't mean that, especially once the nodes move in, that there won't be conflict between what you want to do for fun or play versus like your higher missions of the world. So like, I think that as the nodes move in and are in for like the next year and a half, Aries risings may start feeling this tension really start setting in between, I just want to like have fun or go to shows or like go out with my friends or like, freaking take a drama class or something. And then at the same time, it's going to feel like, but I have all this pressure on me, or I have to do this for the world or the collective good or the greater good or for some bigger purpose in some way. And so that there could be a tension with that does start building over the next year and a half though. But that's what I got. So Will, you can go.
Yeah, so I definitely feel for y'all if you've been like kind of going through it, just because like Saturn going through your first house is just rough, all right? I understand. However, there is something that's going to be building up that will be a lot more supportive, because as both the Sun and Jupiter continue to progress through Leo over these next couple of, you know, weeks and months, you're going to be able to get a lot more support, because they're going to create a trine to Saturn, and they're going to make it to where the energy flows a lot better for you. So I'm happy about that for you. And I'm also happy because, like, yes, there is a need to get serious. There is a need to take into account the different responsibilities and things that you have going on in your life, especially the extra bit of responsibility and weight and restriction that you've had placed on you. But you do have to remember that it is important to have fun as well. It is important to do what you like, find different things that you like. Like, yes, there's going to be a need to keep a balance there, but during this time, at the very least, let that kind of bring you up and like remind you of the good things of life. Do something fun. Do something that's going to bring you out and about, have you like mingling and whatnot, because it'll be part of what kind of keeps you going and gives you that energy that you need. And with your ruler being in your third house for right now, it also emphasizes something about communications and the different media and stuff that you're communicating. A lot of the stuff that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, like there's a higher importance there. So um, do what you can to enjoy yourself, take in as many of the good vibes as possible as they start to come through. Be aware that yes, things might get a little more intense, like the upcoming full moon in Aquarius may show you different dynamics when it comes to like your friend group societies, or not societies, like different like social groups and things like that. Take them into account, but I still want you to make sure that you're doing what you can to have fun while the fun vibes are there for you.
Yes, for sure. And comment sexy Aries rising down below if you watch till here. Okay, moving on to Taurus rising. And once you go, I'm gonna step out for like just like 2 seconds and then I'll be right back as you're talking. So don't worry about me. Just wanted to say that.
Okay.
But okay, Taurus risings, I feel like this opposition between Jupiter and Leo, in your fourth house and Pluto in your or wait, Jupiter and the Sun in your fourth house and Pluto and Aquarius in your 10th house. I'm getting like all mixed up at this point. This is about time my brain starts like doing all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah.
And then with that opposition, and then also the nodes moving in your 10th and fourth house at the very end of this week, there is a huge focus on your career and your bigger mission and like helping the world and helping humanity and like other people depending on you and your professional life and the big things that you're doing in your professional life or with your future or with the world or with your career and those that you affect from that. And then that is really getting into this opposition with your fourth house of your home, family, and personal life, the part of your life that's not so public, that's more private, that's more behind closed doors. And so I think here there's this massive push and pull as a Taurus rising. Number one, this is a big deal because these are your angular houses. So these cause really, really big change, really big turning points in one's life. So over the next, 18 months or so, starting now, there's a lot of significant change happening within your career and within your personal, private sector of life. And even if you're retired, because I get comments like that a lot when I talk about the 10th house, well, I'm retired, or I don't have a career, or I don't know what I want to be when I grow up yet, or like whatever. This is your future, this is your adulthood. So even if you don't know, or even if whatever, you're still getting pushed to some higher goal. You're still getting pushed to some ideal of where you would like your life to be or where you would like your life to go or how you would like your life to be, even if you already have it, even if you're retired and you live in a cabin in the woods on a lake and you're like, this is exactly how I pictured my life. All right, that's still 10th house. This is like, okay, well, this is where my life went and here I am, and sometimes it may just be reflecting back on your life, or it may be, hey, I still want to like, do these things before, I check out, whatever the case may be. And so this is a time, if you're a Taurus rising, that can be very, very focused and fixated on, okay, what is going on in the home life? How is that taking me away from like my bigger mission in some way? Or what is my bigger mission and how's that taking me away from my home life? And so there's going to be a really big push and pull here over the next year and a half for Taurus risings of, I want to, be in harmony and in my home life, or, have harmony in my home life, have a sense of heart and warmth and aliveness and all of that. But there is such a high demand in your career right now for you to spend a lot of your mental energy, your mental focus on your career or where you're going or your future goals or, whatever the case may be for you. And so I feel, or you could be, figuring out as a Taurus rising that you want a career that has more impact or that makes a bigger impact in the world or that affects change on a bigger level for humanity. You could have maybe this very regal home life, behind the scenes or private life, whether you live with other family members or not, whether you live alone or have a family of your own or whatever. Or you could come from this very like nice background and then you decide, you know what, I want to help the collective. I want to help humanity. I want to do something that's going to affect change in a bigger way here. And I think the push and pull between affecting that change versus doing what you want to do in your private life is going to be very big. Like maybe your career starts affecting who you can be in private in some way. So a great instance would be like celebrities. Now, I'm not saying all Taurus risings are going to become celebrities here, but it's just a great example. Or really any person that is in power, and that works at a very high establishment that is doing really big things. In private, they may have to start acting differently. Like they may not be able to just go out and recklessly party in the middle of the street, for 24 hours and, like not be photographed or not have consequences or like whatever. So for some Taurus risings, this could be like maybe your public goals or your public profession or your public career or the road that you're headed in publicly, whatever you want to call it, is somehow affecting your private life or who you need to be in private. Or maybe you're just bringing it home with you at the very least. Like you're coming home, you're still thinking about work and you want to have time to be present at home, but you're struggling with that. Now, those are some of the ways that can play out. Obviously, there's so many more, so I'll let Will dive in and talk about it too. And I'll be right back, literally like 2 seconds.
Alrighty. And something that I'm seeing happening here is it's important to note that the ruler of your chart is in Virgo right now, and it's probably highlighting some things that are kind of making you want to do some things for fun, make you want to enjoy yourself, right? And your very own particular way of enjoying yourself. Like there's something that maybe enjoying really good food, right? While part of you is like really trying to be in that space and it's kind of like drawing you to that space, there's something that's going on, as Tanya was mentioning, on this home life, work life, home life, like out in public life. Like there's something that's happening here that's really starting to transform a lot of things for you. And like the stuff that you're having happen right now, as there's a lot of energy moving into these sides of your life, is that you're going to start to gain different perspectives and gain different ways of like seeing what it is that you have going on in your home life, different comforts and things that you have in your home life, different ways that you like to be within your home life, as opposed to how you are out in public, right? And over the next year and a half, you're going to start to see how you're pulled more and more out of your home. And like for people with very strong Taurus energy, like you may not want to necessarily be out and about. You may not want to like, I guess, push yourself too much or do too much that's like outside of like your norm, right? But you're going to feel that urge. You're going to have this desire to like really start to change things up and do something there. And part of what you're going to be experiencing over the next year and a half is going to be very much linked to the different things that you're having going on over this next week and a half, 2 weeks, right? So pay attention to the different things that come up for you, and maybe also use like some of the this time that you're going to have Jupiter going through your fourth house for like the next year to feel the blessings of the things that come from home, so you can deal with a lot of things that are going on in your outer world, in your outer life, in that public sphere. Maybe you'll find different ways to really enjoy and entertain yourself within your home so that you can handle the battles and everything that are going on in your public life, or the different changes and things that are coming about. For some of you, you may decide to become part of those things that are changing and kind of spur some of that and be more in the public and like do more to help society, do more to help the world. And some of you may actually become healers or have like different things during this time that are kind of urging you to use your own embodied experiences and things that you've learned from that to help heal the world in that sense. And if that's you, then really, again, like use this time and this perspective change and this stuff that's happening within your home life to give you like a nice base. And I think that your base is more important for you than for most other people, so that you can again do everything else that you're going to be doing. Pay attention to the time around the full moon, because it'll help you understand a little bit more of these dynamics and understand that that's going to be playing out over the next bit of time for you. So as this stuff starts to happen, you'll start to see where things are at right now, and then you'll possibly be able to understand where things are going, especially if you um, feel it out more so than like seeing it out. Like if you're connecting to it from a more intuitive perspective, then you may be able to channel or understand some of the energies that are coming, to then be able to grasp and take in a hand some of that power that is available.
I'm going to say this really quick because I think it's funny and potentially very accurate. I could see a lot of Taurus risings being involved in some kind of like secret thing, like top secret government official career thing that they're working on, especially because Saturn, the ruler of their 10th, is in their 12th. I probably want to see some eighth house action for that to be 100% true. So if for instance like somebody that had a Taurus sun had like maybe like a sun in Sag, or some kind of placement and like some kind of like big placement that would tie all these transits together in Sag, then that would be even more confirming for me. But I feel like with Pluto crossing the midheaven, obviously that can give a lot of Taurus risings kind of this life crisis feel of what am I doing? Where am I going? Everything may feel unknown. Or if you already have a career or know where you're going or working towards something in your life, it could be very Pluto in nature that is maybe secretive, or especially with the ruler in the 12th, it feels like working towards a mission that may not be seen completely. It's like you're a cog in a wheel, but you have like that cog in the wheel is so important because like it is working towards something greater, but you are just a small part of something bigger, and which is very Aquarian as well. And Leo, with Leo being in the fourth, it's like at home, that's when you want to feel special and seen and stuff. But like in your career, even though you're working towards something maybe bigger or more collective or more change in some way, you may still be not completely seen in that, but it doesn't make the goal or the destination any less important. And so I just wanted to add that too, because I was just looking at how Saturn, the ruler of the 10th, is in the 12th, and how even though it's very public life and career, it's still kind of very behind the scenes in some way, So anyways, comment down below, sexy Taurus rising, if you stayed till here, and we're going to move on to Gemini rising. So basically for Gemini risings, this opposition between the sun and Pluto is happening in your third house and your ninth house. Also, the nodes will be moving into your third and ninth at the very end of this week. So Leo and Aquarius are a really big deal right now in the sky. And for you, this is your third and ninth house. So as we've been talking about, this deals a lot with your information, your early education and your higher education, or later on education if you went to college and things like that. Can deal with your belief systems about the world, your religious beliefs, your political beliefs, your philosophical beliefs, your spiritual beliefs, basically the way you think and the environments you interact with on a day-to-day basis versus getting out of your comfort zone. So whether that be your local environment or whether that be you traveled to another country or another state, how you interact with your environment and the thoughts, beliefs, ideals that you gain or have or possess from your environments. The ninth house in Hellenistic astrology was thought to be the house of God and where we find God. And so I think it's really interesting that the North Node is going to be entering this area for you with Pluto there. The South Node is going to be entering your third house with the Sun there for now and Jupiter also there. And so I think there may be this unraveling of maybe what you have thought you've known up until this point. So early education, early childhood, early environments, maybe siblings and any kind of environments, that you're in that kind of reinforce maybe this particular ideal about yourself and about the world could really start coming up around this time. But I think a lot of Gemini risings are going to be really kind of pushed in over like the next year and a half to go into the unknown and kind of discover things that are a bit unseen or maybe a bit like not talked about as much, or it's kind of like this this kind of mystery journey that you could be going on into trying to understand things better. Now, for some of you, it could just be maybe you change your educational pursuit in some way, or you decide to change your major, or you travel to a different country, or you start resonating with a new political belief more. Like it could be that, things like that for some of you. But either way, your beliefs are a big deal. Your beliefs kind of paint the overall background music of your life. Like you could be driving past a McDonald's and be like, ooh, yay. Or you could drive past a McDonald's and be like, ugh, I'm going to throw up, And so there could either be happy music playing or like gross music playing as you pass that McDonald's, and the music would be your beliefs, right? Like if you believe McDonald's is really good, or if you believe McDonald's is trash and really bad for you, then it's gonna change how you look at it when you see McDonald's. And so the beliefs kind of paint this idea, this image, this meaning of your life. And this is what's going to be really changing over the next year and a half with Pluto in your ninth and Jupiter moving through your third, and then the nodes coming in here. It's like, where have you had these old ideals about your life, about why you're here, about the role that you play on a day-to-day basis and where you want to go, or your higher purpose, or like whatever, your educational pursuits, your religious beliefs, your political beliefs. and what is changing fundamentally there. And so that's what I'm seeing for Gemini risings.
Gemini Risings, I am super excited that you guys will no longer have to deal with the Mercury retrograde soon because soon after this video is released, he will be stationing direct, and your life may actually start to feel like it's moving forward again. That being said, you do have a lot of energy going through your sign, and a lot of you may be feeling like a lot of extra energy coursing through you. Some of you might actually benefit by like, taking off your shoes and doing some of that grounding stuff that Tani had mentioned for another sign. Like it could legitimately help you to get rid of some of that excess energy or do something to where like you're able to get rid of it because some of you may just be feeling like you're going crazy. Like, why do I have all this extra energy? You've got Mars going through there, you've got Uranus going through there. Like it's just going to be like a lot of energy that's really exciting you, right? And part of what you're going to be seeing also as like a lot of these energies start to change because the nodes are moving into Leo and Aquarius, and the nodes are going to be making a trine and a sextile to your Gemini energies, and it's going to be energy that's going to be flowing and helping you, right, in a sense. So a lot of like the different things that you're going to be seeing come about with maybe some of the harder stuff that you're starting to feel as the Aquarius full moon comes about, that's kind of highlighting some different beliefs and how your beliefs, so maybe some limiting beliefs have been playing out in your life, and how maybe different things that you were taught as a kid are affecting the way that you believe things in your general philosophy. Maybe some of the stuff starts to come about. And maybe during this time, you're also able to really start to pivot and change the way that you're thinking and change the way that you go about your life because you realize that it's keeping you back from all of this greatness that you're capable of, right? And I believe that my Gemini risings more so than a lot of other people, you're going to really start to see your life pick up. You're going to start to see things really just take off. And part of what's going to help you do that is doing the hard work and understanding what different things that you have going on with your beliefs, with your the way that you think as well. Because that third house, ninth house axis is thoughts, also beliefs, and it's connecting those two different sides of things. And when you have a lot of energy playing out, it helps you become more conscious of those things that are happening, especially with the sun and Jupiter both going through your third house. You will see a lot of like different beliefs, well, different thought patterns, different communications, and things that you have going on, even within like your siblings, within your like neighborhood, like things that you have going on there that may help you change perspective and maybe gain some power from different things you have going on with your beliefs as well. Like there's something that's happening that's going to really start to change your life over the next couple of years as the nodes go through there, that will help you really change a lot. But you're going to want to make sure that you're preparing yourself to deal with these energies by acknowledging the different things that you have going on, and again taking care of your body, and yeah, like just understand that life is changing and it may be feeling like it's changing a lot faster for you than it is for other people. It's fine. Roll with it, do the work, be ready to go into the unknown. Understand that the unknown is bringing in something that can be even more exciting for you, something that's going to be even more stimulating for you, and can possibly help other people at the same time.
Yes, love that. All right, comment down below, sexy Gemini rising. And we are going to move on to last but not least, Cancer rising. So for Cancer risings, this opposition is happening in your second and eighth house. So this has a lot to do with finances, assets, and income, and other people's money, honey. So this is, I honestly really like this for Cancer risings, and this is why. So usually I feel like Pluto in the eighth would be a bit spooky because the eighth is already kind of out of your control, and then you have a planet that's also out of your control there. But I actually feel like with this, with Saturn in the 10th house, which is an angular house, so it isn't a house that the ascendant can't see, I feel like that's helping. And I feel like it's really like Cancer risings are really buckling down on what they want out of life right now. I really feel. I think that there's a huge forward push and momentum here happening with, again, kind of like what I said for Capricorn risings, this fundamental change happening within how you view money, assets, finances, and what you want to build in this life in terms of your wealth and where you want to invest your time and energy. I feel like the sun and Jupiter moving through Leo, and then eventually the south node coming here the start of next week, is really like, look, you are the source. Like where you put your focus, where you put your awareness, like it's kind of waking up to being like, okay, wait, I have the power here. Where I put my energy and focus is where energy flows. It's like coming into this self-ownership of one's innate abilities, tools, and gifts to be able to create one's own finances or assets or possessions. And with the opposition to Pluto, yeah, there may be, I think as long as you can deal with the unknown, with fear around rejection or not belonging, then I feel like that's going to be a big key for a lot of people, because I think that this for Cancer risings, there's this maybe these ideals that you've had around wealth, or who has wealth or power, and who has power and how to get it. And especially with Aquarius there, Aquarius is a fixed air sign, can have some pretty strong ideals. And so for Cancer risings, there may be a lot of very strong ideals there. But with Pluto there and the North Node moving in there, I think that you may start understanding things about wealth that maybe you had never understood before. It may really change your perspective, your beliefs, your ideals around wealth and the kind of wealth that you want to build in this life. Now, obviously, with Saturn in the 10th, I think this is also really pushing Cancer risings to step up to the plate, to maybe take on some more responsibility with work, career, and your life direction right now. If you are not feeling how I've talked about, this is potentially why. Like Saturn in the 10th, yes, can give you more responsibility, but it's also about direction and leadership, and you're not going to learn how to lead. Like, you have to be the one to lead your life, Aries in the 10th. You have to have self-leadership, and that is really, really big right now. And that's what it's coming back down to with your money and your financial situation too. You have to have faith in yourself. You have to have courage to face certain fears or take certain risks financially. And with Mercury coming out of retrograde this week in your first house, I think that you're going to start getting a lot more clear on your ideals in your mind and your understanding of yourself to be able to move forward. Now, obviously, you do have Mars still in your 12th house, which rules that 10th house area of you. So there still is a bit of, understanding on the back end that could be happening with your life direction, your career, where you're going. But I think the 12th house is a very spiritual house. So the more that you can really tap into spirituality, the mindset, beliefs, all of that, and use that to your favor, work on that, have fun with that, be curious about those things rather than just like, fighting internally with yourself or having this like confrontational inner dialogue all the time with yourself. I think the more you can become aware of how you're speaking to yourself and your mind, the more power you're going to have in your life right now, especially with Mars still in your 12th. Eventually it'll move in your first. But anyway, so that's what I'm seeing for Cancer rising. So you can go, Will.
Yeah, so for Cancer risings, like the moon is so important for y'all. Like your life is supposed to have like a connection to flow. Your life is supposed to have a connection to just the the things that happen behind the scenes constantly. And when you have those moments like a full moon, like the full moon we're going to have in Aquarius, you have a moment of like just kind of connecting to it in a different way, right? But a lot of you are legitimately supposed to be letting life flow. And one of the things that's going to be important with the next couple years, because the eclipses are going to be happening on the Leo Aquarius axis, is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Um, the moon isn't necessarily happy in Aquarius or Capricorn, because those are two signs that are pretty far from where the moon is at, and their energies don't necessarily align with the flow, right? If you get used to understanding that's just part of the flow, that's part of what is going to be happening, then you can connect with it differently, because I believe that more so than most other people, Cancer risings have a lot to do with how things play out, and a lot of that's connected to their intuition. A lot of it's also connected to their emotions. And if your emotions are like, if you're not connecting to your emotions, if you're not connecting and allowing yourself to feel out the darkness and the deep darkness that comes with Pluto and Aquarius, it might be keeping you from receiving some of that flow that you need to really keep your life going, right? As Tanya was mentioning, Pluto and Aquarius can truly help you unlock different knowledge on how exactly true power works, how true wealth actually works as well. You're going to get some different inklings over the next couple of weeks with both the Sun and Jupiter opposing Pluto and helping you get it from a different perspective. And that Aquarius full moon also is going to help you connect to it. But I want you to be thinking about the different impressions that you're getting, because the impressions are also going to be impacting other aspects of how your life plays out. Because again, the moon is the ruler of your chart and is affecting how everything else plays out. understanding that things aren't always good, things aren't always supposed to be happy, and maybe allowing yourself to let go of some of the past deceptions, past things that have happened can help you really start to progress and realign or re-gauge the your connection to finance, because finance is also very much about flow. All right. Finance is in money, it's energy, and connecting to the flow of that energy and being able to connect to also that darkness and the depth of what you have going on there in that eighth house can help you unlock a different way of working with your finances to where you're able to deal with things from yourself, but also understanding that sometimes there's another side of finances. There's just another side of money that you can tap into, and your ability to do so, if you allow yourself to feel it out, can actually be a bit different than it would be otherwise. And again, as she mentioned, Saturn is in your 10th house, so this is very much talking about the different things that you can be doing in your career as well when it comes to this. And with Saturn and Neptune both being in that 10th house, it again brings another side of the emotional, the spiritual. Like it goes beyond the physical, even though the physical is implicated with Saturn being there. There's something that goes beyond that, especially for you. So when you figure out, when you connect to the darkness, when you connect to the unknown, it can help give you the what you need to then go out and go forth, especially when Mars moves out of your 12th, out of the place where yes, you're getting the connected bits from it because you've got the triangle, the sextiles that Mars is making to Saturn, and the sign-based sextile that Mars is making to your 10th house. When he moves into your first house, it's going to be giving you the drive. It's going to be forcing you to move, right? There's something about those squares that kind of forces action, and it may be able to help you force the action necessary to bring about some type of change.
Yeah, emotional intelligence is very huge for Cancer. And I want to say one more thing with Pluto in the eighth. This really is dealing with the death of the old in some way. So that could be an old relationship. I literally would not be surprised if, I know for a fact actually, that a lot of Cancer risings have gotten out of relationships or, you know, big big situations that they felt like they were like stuck in for a while, or contractual agreements or business partnerships or like whatever at this point. So I think that a lot of this is also understanding that Pluto in your eighth can be the dying of old things, but also the inheritance of things from that. And also um, learning how to deal with debt and also systems around money with Aquarius in the eighth as well. I think that's big. So I just wanted to add that. That is it. We have done
Hey,
all 12 signs in our 3 hour intro or however long it
oh
was.
my gosh, bruh, that
And
was
literally, I was
wow.
like, oh, it's just a weekly. It'll be like maybe an hour or two, but it's fine. I feel like it's so easy to just like nerd out. But thank you so much again for doing this with me. I really, really appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.